Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the season finale of the Alpha Touring Challenge Season 5, as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform, available only on PC, known as iRacing. That's right, it is the case that today is round 13 of 13 here at Road Atlanta in the state of Georgia in the United States of America, and we are looking to wrap up what has been an absolutely superb season of racing with one more race on the calendar. And as we're about to get underway with all of our drivers taken to the circuit in the final warm-up practice session, let's take you through the schedule for tonight. Times in British Summer Time, alternatively known as BST or Universal Coordinated Time +1, that's UTC +1. Our schedule is as follows. In just under 40 minutes time, we'll be going into our final qualifying session of the season, 15 minutes where all of our drivers will take to the tarmac and look to deliver their best possible qualifying laps. They look to put themselves as high up the order in preparation for our one race on the schedule tonight, and that will be at 8 o'clock, and that will be known as the Special Challenge Race. For, as we'll see very shortly when we cut to our season calendar, this round, the season finale round, is a little bit different compared to our other rounds, whereby we normally see the oscillation between Alpha Challenge rounds or our feature race rounds and also sprint race rounds, which have seen 3 races within their given race day schedule. But today we only have one race on the schedule, and that is the Special Challenge Race, and we'll take you through the specifics of that. But what we can immediately tell you is it is going to be 75 minutes in length, or an hour and 15 minutes, and therefore it is our longest race on the schedule of all races, which presents immediately a slightly longer challenge for our drivers. But there's more to it than that, and we'll come into all the details in short order. Now, we should point out as a bit of housekeeping that this broadcast is being brought to you live, but it is a post-race broadcast. So the racing action you see in the screen will not quite be live as such. The racing occurred earlier on in the week, specifically occurred on Monday the 10th of October, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live for your viewing pleasure. And this broadcast is being brought to you on 2 media platforms. Firstly, if you are a YouTube user, you can go to youtube.com and search for TX141TX, alternatively Paul Walsh, or you can go to twitch.tv/TX141 and tune in there, depending on your preference. And who is TX141 or Paul Walsh, I hear you ask? Well, that is I, your host and commentator. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Brit of the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you the conclusion of what has absolutely been a fantastic season of racing. Indeed, I've said it before and I'll say it again, the season of racing in this touring car racing class series has been akin to real-world touring cars such as TC America, alternatively British Touring Car Championship. That's how close the racing has been since the very start. And well, speaking of the very start through to the very end, let's take you through the calendar as it has played out. Of course, 13 rounds, and come the end of it, we can only have one winner within each of our respective drivers and teams championships. We started off all the way back at Belle Isle in Detroit back on the 11th of July, and well, in the state of Michigan, we saw plenty of racing action at Belle Isle. Indeed, what a season opener as our drivers took to the tarmac for the first of the feature race rounds, or the Alpha rounds. We then made our way over to the state of California in the United States of America for the Laguna Seca circuit and our first 3 sprint races of the season, and there we saw plenty of battling action in all 3 races. Indeed, a couple of cars coming off circuit into the sand. But then we made our way across the Pacific Ocean to Japan for Fuji Speedway on the 25th of July, and there we saw a mix-up in the field, and particularly Micah Hendricks really delivering some absolutely flying laps and delivering a fantastic win at the Japanese circuit. Wind on a week later, we made our way over to the British circuit for Autumn Park, synonymous with British Touring Car Championship, and there on the 1st of August for our second sprint race round of the season, we saw plenty of door-to-door action, a few elbows coming out, and the narrow nature of the British circuit, seeing many a driver ended up on the grass, and some major incidents as well, proving to put some drama into the championship nice and early. We then made our way across what was the channel over to Italy for Monza, and on the 8th of August there in the feature race round, it wasn't Monza Turn 1 that came to haunt many of our drivers, but it was Monza Lap 2, second chicane, that haunted our drivers with a huge incident, really putting a spanner in the works for a good number of drivers, and it led to many dropping some major points. Then we made our way to Austria for the 15th of August, and that's where we had another sprint race round, and there we had our closest sprint races of the season. I'm going to put it out there and say it now, in the fact that we had 3 races at the Red Bull Ring National Circuit, so not the full Grand Prix layout, but the shorter national circuit, which many of our drivers perhaps doubted would produce fantastic racing, but when we did have in one race in particular, 3x2 into turn number 1, or 6 wide as we called it, oh goodness me, all 6 drivers surviving the run to turn number 1. It was absolutely fascinating stuff, and much will be remembered in the memory of the season simply for that round alone. But then, heading a week later, the 22nd of August, we made our way back to Italy for the Autodromo Enzo Iduno Ferrari, also known as Imola, and there we saw another feature race round, which whilst we didn't have have too many drivers take to the circuit, many a driver using it as a drop round. Still, the number of drivers in attendance was full of quality racing action, and then we did see some major drama with regards to drive-through penalties right at the end of the race. Then, to head back to the United Kingdom, on the 29th of August, we had another 3 sprint races at Donington Park, and there again, much like at Alton Park, we saw the British circuit really drive up some fantastic racing action and door-to-door battling before we wrapped up the first half of the season at the Interlagos circuit in South America. And, well, in Brazil, we saw on the 5th of September many a battle unfold, and indeed some great battling between our Delta drivers, or our AM class, versus our Pro class drivers, the Alpha drivers there. All drivers really going for points heading into the mid-season break. After a week's break, we returned on the 19th of September for our final sprint race round of the season at the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, or Motorsport as it's known in short, and the Canadian circuit really generating that thrill ride of racing that you come to expect in sprint races, and what a way to wrap up our sprint races on the calendar. We then made our way back to the United States. The final 3 rounds started on the 26th of September at the Mid-Ohio circuit, of course the Mid-Ohio Sports Club car course, and there in the state of Ohio we saw plenty of battle in action, particularly through the S's of the circuit, or the madness as it was like, and indeed it was madness in terms of the battling, and some major strategic moves from John Lauzon in particular, which became undone on the final lap when John Lauzon had to come into the pits to take some extra fuel. We then had in the penultimate round last time out on the 3rd of October, Watkins Glen International play host to our drives on the full layout of the circuit, and there we saw plenty of battling and surprises up and down the field, and we really saw the tone turn with regards to the championship leader overall and in the Alpha class, with Francois Shink taking that initiative and really delivering at the American circuit versus Robert Abrams. And then tonight on the 10th of October, it is Road Atlanta, where we wrap up the championship in its conclusion, only fitting that we started in the United States and we conclude in the United States. And speaking of the Road Atlanta circuit, well, of course, located in the state of Georgia in Hall County by the village of Brazelton, this circuit, made up of 12 corners, as you can see from the circuit map provided us by simracingwiki.com, is not one for the faint-hearted. Likened to a roller coaster ride for road racing, this circuit features a whole wide variety of sweeping corners, and you can see there in the first half of the lap in particular, from turn 1 through to turn number 5, it is an absolute thrill ride. And unfortunately, this image does not provide justice with regards to the circuit, given the fact that this circuit has some major elevation changes. There's no doubt about that, and as we'll go on to see in our qualifying session, those elevation changes can really unsettle a car, even a touring car racing class car, with the centre of mass is towards the front, with the engine being at the front and front wheel drive. Still, that can really cause the car to shake about under braking on under rotation, and it'll be a question of who can keep it on the circuit just as much as who can push it fast around the circuit. But it's not just about the first half of the lap. We also have an absolutely huge run down the back straight from turn 7 all the way out to the turn 10 chicane. And a little bit of a historical note for you, the turn 10 chicane being introduced after the circuit's conception and initial construction, and used there in order to slow the speed of approach for drives in the run to turn number 11. Otherwise, before then, they'd be charging into turn number 11, an uphill right-hander that goes downhill into turn number 12 in excess of 160 miles an hour. Typically, if you're looking at a GT3 class car by comparison, and even these touring car racing class cars, they'd be hitting at about 150 miles an hour. But that chicane at turns 10A and 10B has been introduced to slow the pace, but by no doubt take away any thrill, as it's now a major downhill braking zone into the turn 10 chicane, and we could see some huge moves play out there tonight. But putting it all together over the course of the lap, it wraps up with the run through turn number 12, which sees our drivers charge onto the next lap, and that is what makes it the roller coaster ride, because the corners never stop punching hard, and our drivers will need to keep the stamina up if they wish to do well. Now, speaking of doing well, of course, with it being the special challenge round, there are going to be certain changes with regards to the rules for tonight. Firstly, this is an open setup series, and that stays the same way, but what you can see is that car fuel loads have been restricted to 30 litres for this round. Now coming on to the specific rules with regards to the race, or the special challenge as it's known. Drivers may choose to pit as needed. There are no mandatory pit stops. Now you may be thinking, a 75-minute race, a 30-litre fuel tank restriction, that means there are going to be pit stops, right? Yes, you are correct. However, our drivers can choose when to pit and how many times they decide to pit. They can take tyres if they want to, but they're not required to, and it's the same with fuel. They can take fuel on in the pits, they don't necessarily have to. And what we expected here today in terms of strategy, it's either going to be a fuel-saving one-stop, alternatively a hard, fast and aggressive two-stop from our drivers, and I suspect most of them will be going for the two-stop. On top of that, you can see that our drive-through penalty count has been raised from what it was typically 9 to 13 instant points in order to reduce the likelihood of drive-through penalties, but the disqualification line has not been moved upwards. That has stayed at 16 instant points. Also, the following bonus points are available as per the tradition. 1 point for overall pole position in qualifying. That is overall, so P1 of the entirety of the grid, not within class. So the Delta driver qualifies P2, and that puts them in pole position in their class, but it's P2 overall. They do not get the bonus point. 1 point for fastest lap in the race. 1 point for the Sublime Finesse Award, which is the fewest instance over the round. 1 point for lead in a lap, and 1 point for Naked Aggression. The award there for the most overtakes over the course of the round, as is per the usual. But that's enough rules, regulations, and everything in between. I know what you're all here for, and let's head back to those live pictures as our drivers make the way around on circuit now and get ready to go here with not long to go as they build their way up to the final qualifying session of the season. And with 20 drivers in attendance today, as we do look for our statistics and data sheets at the moment, we already do have a small bit of drama with regards to the championship. But let's take you through a little bit of the story of what needs to be settled here today. We already know that the Delta Class Championship has been wrapped up with regards to the championship winner. That is Connor Achitella, who we see here in the number 55 car. The Hyundai Veloster driver has really been on point all season with regards to the Delta class and has taken the maiden crown in the class as a season 5 back in what was round number 12. It was confirmed going into round number 12, and indeed the result he picked up last time out made sure and cemented that, but I believe it was confirmed as the conclusion of round number 11. And now all the points up for grabs are in the battle for P2 in the what is the Delta class between rivals of Auguste Blondel, who you can see here making his way out of turn 10B for Blue Flag Motorsports in the 17 Hyundai Elantra. He's currently running in P3 in the class, and then P2 driver in the class of Daniel Sedino, who you see there parked up in the pit lane for Blue Flag Motorsports. The two teammates will go toe-to-toe come the conclusion, and which one of them is going to come out on top? That is the big question for second place or the runner-up slot in the Delta class. Meanwhile, the bigger question is the overall and the Alpha Championship crown. And, well, the main belligerents are what is Francois Shink, who's currently your championship leader by 40 points going into tonight. The Beaver Buzz Energy driver there in the number 18 car. All drop scores applied, and of course this round cannot be dropped. We need to emphasise that every driver, however they finish today, the points from today will be carried into their final championship tally. But as we do see Shink then making his way out of the pit lane and deciding to just head off circuit, perhaps do a bit of meditation before going racing. Francois Shink is your championship leader, and his rival Robert Abrams was, I looked to my statistics sheets at the moment, unless I'm very much mistaken, Robert Abrams is not in attendance currently, and I think that could mean if Abrams is not able to make it to the circuit come the start of the race, that is going to be the championship all said and done and wrapped up, which is unfortunate because we would have loved to have seen the two go toe-to-toe, but Abrams might have not been able to make it tonight due to personal circumstances, and if that's the case, it is unfortunate, but we do wish him well, and that does natively hand the championship crown to Francois Shink, as we see Daniel Smith making his way down for 11 and into turn number 12. And as he comes on through, we still have a major conclusion to wrap up with regards to third place in the Alpha Championship, and that is held currently by John Lauzon, the Beaver Buzz Energy driver, but he has not got it easy with the fact that he does have a number of the breakfast for dinner drivers hot on his heels, including Justin Rhodes, and also you saw there in the front of the camera David Bauer for a brief moment as he leads John Lauzon all the way up towards turn at number 6, and they're just a number of individuals who are fighting for that P3 slot in the championship as we head into tonight. So still plenty on the cards, albeit it does seem as though our major championship crowns have already been effectively decided going into tonight, but still plenty of racing to come. And one thing we didn't talk about that makes this race a little bit more challenging, even more so than the fact it is longer and it is a race where drivers have to decide when they want to pit. There is no mandatory pit stop effectively on the cards, but they are mandated to come into the pits given the amount of fuel they start the race with. And that is we have an 8 times time acceleration here in the simulator. Now what does that mean in simple English? Well, you can imagine 1 times time acceleration means that for every second of time turned in the real world, that is a second of time turned in the simulator. When you up that to 8 times, so every second that passes in the real world, 8 seconds passes in the simulator, and therefore we are expecting this race to go through multiple iterations of time today. So we may see this race start in daytime, but it can end up finishing in night time there, just to add a little bit of a feel like the Petit Le Mans that takes place at the Road Atlanta circuit year in, year out, and that just adds a little bit more complexity and danger to the racing here. And when we say danger, it's that thrill ride, of course, of bringing the car on home successfully, and that will be the big challenge for our drivers as they look to bring their championship campaigns home on a high. But as we see here with just over a minute left before we do go into that qualifying session, we've got Justin Rhodes heading towards the end of another practice lap. We can see Adrian Pedorowski here from QZ Motorsports heading on down the hill. We also do have two newcomers in attendance today, and those are going to be two Delta drivers making a debut in the season finale, and that will be the combination of Michael Zepp in the Audi RS3, who you can see him here for QZ Motorsports, and we've also got Alex Kotlowski here just behind him in the Hyundai Elantra, the privateer in the 69 machine, and they'll be looking to try and whet their tempers here with regards to potential points, but more importantly getting a feel, because I suspect they'll be coming back for season 6, and more details on that at the end of today's program. But with just over 30 seconds left before we head into qualifying, we will need to briefly just step away. We'll be right back because of course we need to advance our iRacing replay file forward in order to make sure that in the qualifying session the final qualifying times are not spoiled for us before we get to the end of the qualifying session. We see those times come in as the qualifying session unfolds. So we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen, in no more than a minute, and we'll get qualifying underway. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, qualifying is underway for the last time this season, and as our drivers head out to the pit lane, multiple coming on out, we can see there in particular Connor Achatella being the first driver to leave the pit lane as they head on up the hill towards turns 2 and 3 in quick succession. And all of our drivers will know that given they've only got 15 minutes on the clock, as is per the usual of these qualifying sessions, they do not have a huge amount of time in order to set laps. We are expecting the laps here within the touring car racing class to come in around 1 3/4 minutes, if not a little bit higher than that, and therefore our drivers will need to nail their laps early on for the simple reason that only gives them effectively about 6 to 7 laps, and the problem is you need to build up rhythm here at Road Atlanta. This is one of those circuits whereby you want to enter a state of trance in terms of just finding your way around the circuit, getting into that rhythm of knowing when your braking zones are, where to get back on the throttle, where the car's going to bite into corner apex, where it's going to want to understeer, and if you can get into that rhythm nice and early, then those lap times will continue to pile on in. And of course, if you can't get into that rhythm, you may find yourself struggling and languishing to a degree in terms of your qualifying position when the session is all said and done. As we do see here, Achatella making his way all the way down towards the turn 10 chicane. He will be the driver we ride on board with for our first flying lap of this qualifying session. And then the Hyundai Veloster, we are expecting the Veloster to be quite strong here on paper, given its mix of characteristics, but whether he can deploy those strengths or not will be told by the laps he puts on in. And as he makes his way on down the hill, we clear the screen of all the data, bring up the circuit map for you, and Achatella takes us around for the first flying lap of the final round of the season. So heading across the timeline then, as we actually do briefly lose Achatella. I think there's been a bit of a connection issue, and in fact he does seem to cut in and out of existence there, which not to be expected, so we might have to bring a slightly different lap from one of our drivers as he makes his way on down the hill. In fact, we can ride back on board Achatella as he comes on down, but gets it wrong coming over turn number 3 and has to abort the lap immediately. Well, I think that's going to be a bit of an aborted reference lap in general, but meanwhile we can jump to Shepka by comparison, who comes on through, and well, as he makes his way on through turn number 5 there, absolutely hammering the exit curbing and heading up towards turn number 6 and making his way on down towards heading on down towards turn number 6. He makes his way into the right-hander here and now heads up towards turn number 7. But we will ride on board with Shepka for this lap and then the next lap to bring you a full lap of the Road Atlanta circuit as he builds on up here to try and wrap up his first flying lap of the session, as he now heads on down the back straight here, a very long back straight through the Kingston 8 and 9. Gentle left-hander followed by the gentle right-hander. Of course, this portion lap giving our drivers an opportunity to take a brief breather before they charge headlong into the final portion of the lap where the adrenaline levels really pump on through, and you've got that thrill rider coming out of the chicane as he breaks his way on down the gearbox here, heads into turn 10A, taking plenty of apex curve and doing the same here through 10B and coming on out now, powering out and letting the car drift out as wide as possible, keeping 2 wheels within the track limits and heading on down the hill from 11 into turn number 12. And now we'll follow Shepka on around for another lap here as he takes the Honda Civic Type R onto the next lap.
Then in towards turn number 1 in 6th gear and onto the brakes there. And where's the 50 board? But effectively about 150 metres from corner apex down to 4th gear. And now powering through from 100 miles an hour up the hill he goes. Makes his way through the turn 2 left-hander and now braking hard. And then he suddenly sees the apex of turn number 3. Blind summit there as he now heads through turn number 4 and downhill into the S's. No corner numbers here. It's a completely flat-out running high downforce cars. And we can see that in the TCR machines as well as he heads into turn number 5 onto the brakes here down from 5th gear to 3rd gear and coming out to the left-hander of turn 5. Now making his way up towards turn number 6. Bringing the car back over to the left-hand side here before getting onto the brake shortly for turn number 6 while the slice corners on the circuit. Braking at the 100-yard board there on the left-hand side. A bit difficult to see, but just about spot it. And into the slice corner on the circuit, turn number 7 as he comes all the way down the gearbox to 2nd gear, exiting the corner at 56 miles an hour and now heading down that back straight. And of course having that opportunity to have that breather once again as he now makes his way on down. You can see gradually building his way up the gearbox, getting up towards top speed. And this is where we expect the Audi RS3s and also behind it Elantras to be the strongest of the quadrangle cars as he makes his way down towards turn number 10 here over to the right hand side, looking for his brake marker, braking at the 100 metre board there, about 110 metres from the corner, all the way down to 3rd gear, going straight between the two apexes with a little bit of rotation into turn 10B, now over the hill at turn number 11 and downhill towards turn number 12. Heading into the final right hand here to complete lap, and it's a very smooth lap from Shepka as he comes to the timeline. We bring those times up on the board, and from Shepka he improves even further and goes provisional pole on a 29.370 after 2 laps turn. And will David Bauer responds there, going at provisional pole with a 29.008, which is 3.5 tenths faster than anybody else so far, but even more times yet to come in from our drivers as they make their way on around. And Bauer right now absolutely flying his way up the hill. And in terms of what we're expecting to do, the strongest car in terms of 1 lap pace, where it has been the Elantra all season, we're not expecting that to change. We know the Elantra is a very strong car over 1 lap pace, but the challenge of the Elantra is the fact that it is a very aggressive on its tyres, particularly its front tyres, when the track temperature is quite warm. And with a high time acceleration rate here today, we are expecting the Elantra drivers to really experience some difficulty with regards to tyre degradation in the race, because those track temperatures are going to come out incredibly fast and then drop and plummet away very quickly as well, and that could really cause the Elantra drivers to feel as though they're in a bit of a pinch. But on top of that as well, we know more recently, based on how the season has evolved, particularly the latest update to the touring car racing class in iRacing that occurred a couple of weeks ago, that the Honda Civic Type R drivers as well typically struggle with tyre temperature now in the early stages of the race, the opening 3 laps, and they may find as the circuit gets colder midway through the race, should it play out that way, they may find the car also being a bit of a beast to handle in terms of those tyre temperatures just not there and giving them the grip they so desire. But as Bauer heads on through it into the chicane, we had Carr just go up to P5 there, his teammate, and as he makes his way on that and heading down for 11 and up towards turn number 12. Bauer rolling his way on through here, and can he improve it even further in the number 35 as he comes to the timeline. Shepka goes back to the provisional pole at 28.783, and Bauer does not improve there. Meanwhile, in the Delta class, where we can see here the velocity driver Daniel Selina is currently at the provisional pole sitter in the Delta class with what is a 129.79 as he makes his way to the end of this lap and to the end of the first half of the qualifying session. He's still got plenty of time to go, and what's quite interesting here is that it's quite an initial slow response from Achater, who's currently down in P15 overall. That is effectively P3 in the class as he comes across the timeline, and that was a warm-up lap, and he will go again now on a fast lap. But what about our debutants today in the Delta class? Well, here is Michael Zepp, the sole Audi on the grid today, and we've seen the Audi appear in rare occurrences, but it is known to exist in this series as he makes his way on down the hill in towards turn number 10, and as he comes on down onto the brakes here, Zepp keeping it nice and smooth, and the Audi could be strong here, to be fair. We said it's quite strong on the straights, but also it's quite a heavy car compared to its peers, albeit all these touring car racing class machines are quite heavy, but the Audi is known for its ability to run over curbs quite aggressively, and that may give the car a lot of strength in the race, where Zepp is able to push the car through turns 1 through to 5, particularly in the run through the S's, and he might be able to hit those curves just a little bit more aggressively compared to his peers and not worry about the collateral damage in terms of the suspension being a knocked tyre. But as he makes his way up towards turn number 2, heads on through and down into turn number 3, you can see they're just understeering a little bit wide of apex, but bringing it nicely back together turn number 4, and that's what it's all about. If you understeer a little bit into turn number 3, just make sure to balance the throttle, be smart with the car and not overextend down through 4, as otherwise you find yourself on the grass before you know it, running through the S's. But as he takes a bit too much curve in there at turn number 5, well, you can see there just how stable the Audi was when he got it through the apex, even though he kind of hit over the curving, being able not to worry and just power on through, because that won't help with the lap time.
There's more times coming in. We see Hendricks here, who was the fastest driver in the final practice warm-up session, heading into turn number 1 and currently on a 29.223 as he's crossed the line. Well, he's half a second off Shepka's pole lap at the moment at 28.687, and well, car has improved to P2, 1.5 tenths off of Shepka as the times continue to come on in. But another driver we haven't really talked about and could be a major factor in that battle for P3 in the overall and in the Alpha Championship, Jerome Bajula's here as he makes his way up towards turn number 6. Teammate to John Lauzon, of course, as he heads up into the braking zone here in the Elantra drive, will be looking to give it his all to support his teammate and also potentially steal away that P3 himself as he makes his way into turn number 7. But as he comes on through the right hander here, he's got a bit of a distant toe there off of Gurkan Demir, the Turkish driver from Torque Steer Racing, who is trying to follow all the way on through. And Bajula's right now with a distant toe. This could really benefit him, and well, he's not improved too much over the course of this lap so far. As you can see there, Lauzon going a little bit slow. I think trying to gift a bit of a toe there to his teammate as they make their way through the Kinker 9 and down the hill into the braking zone for the chicane. And whilst we won't see it in these touring car racing class machines where their ride heights or the gap between the car's bottom and the road surface being quite high compared to other machinery, if it's a little bit of trivia for you, in the higher downforce, lower ride height machines such as LMP2 machines or GT3 class cars, under braking there into turn number 10, the car can actually bottom out in terms of the under tray, can scrape against the tarmac as they brake into the corner, and that's what makes it even more of a challenging braking zone. But fortunately for our TCR machines here, they don't have to worry about that as much, as Bajula's does not improve on that lap. But meanwhile, Hendricks improves to P3. Aaron Lahr jumps up to P10 overall. The Torque Steer Racing driver in the lime green machine behind Elantra as he comes on through turn number 1. Looking good so far, getting himself into the top 10. And well, qualifying is going to be important, but there's plenty of overtaking spots at this circuit, as you may have already guessed, coming out to turn number 5 in the run towards turn number 6, the run into turn 1 and uphill into 2 and 3. You've also got the run out to turn 7 all the way down towards turn number 10, and also side-by-side modes. We expect plenty of those in the run through at turns 11 and 12 to complete the lap. So it's not as though track position is absolutely vital, but it is going to be useful. If you can start up towards the front of the field, you may be able to avoid a bit of the drama in the opening run through turns 1 to 5, and there's always normally somebody who goes a little bit wide in the opening set of corners on the opening lap. But as we do see Aaron Lahr coming out of turn number 7 and heading up towards what will be turn number 10 now in the long charge, of course. He's got a way to go, and as he makes his way all the way on through, it's going to be a bit of a patient moment for him as he makes his way out towards turn number 10. In terms of his lap so far, he has been improved. He's improved in subsector 2. Subsector 3 as well seems to be going his way. In fact, we'll just wait to see as he gets updated on our timing tower. And indeed, in fact, he did not improve in subsector 3, a little bit off of his previous best, but he could potentially make it all up in the final sector here as he comes on through the chicane. We see Bajula's jumping up to P5, Lauzon jumping up to P7. Both of the Big Buzz energy drives continue to improve here, but Shepka right now still untouchable by 400s, as we see Aaron Lahr does not improve that and carries on through. But speaking of driver coming on through, here is Daniel Sedino, who we ride on board with now as the Veloster drive takes us around for another flying lap. He's currently provisional pole sitter in the Delta Class P12 overall, and what can he do on this lap? We'll head into turn 1 there. You can see the car lifting up on the rear. That's that rear brake bias that our drivers like to use and bring the rotation of the car on through as he heads into the braking zone for turn number 3. And again, unsighted there from the driver's perspective. You can't see the apex curve. You have to brake for a curve you have to believe exists until you see it. As he now makes his way down and through the S's there, taking a bit too much initial apex with the right hander, and that's caused the car to become unsettled. You can see how he's had to micro adjust his line very quickly in order to be able to carry the speed on through. And now Sedino makes his way up towards turn number 6 and getting onto the brakes very shortly. 3 minutes in this session to go, so I only really have one more lap after this coming on through, and his first sector not an improvement compared to his previous best as he makes his way through sector 2 the same. What about now as he heads out of turn number 7 where he runs wide there, and Sedino having to back off as the car is pulled to the grass, and that is going to be an aborted lap. He's going to have to go again. That is unfortunate for the provisional pole sitter in the Delta class, as meanwhile Francois Shink, our championship leader overall and in the Alpha class going into tonight, effectively a formality with Robert Abrams not in attendance. He still needs to finish this race in order to make sure all is said and done, but as he makes his way up through turn 2 and into 3 here, Shink knowing, I think at this point, as he goes a little bit too hot into turn number 3, carries too much speed and has to take the escape road there and releases the breakfast for dinner machine on through, as we are continuing to see some very slight connectivity issues with regards to this replay, and hopefully that's not going to come back to haunt things anytime soon, as we do have Logan McKenzie making his way out of the pit lane in an all-new livery to wrap up this season finale as he makes his way out of turn
number 1 in the pit lane exit and heads up the hill. And McKinsey right now for Yellow Flag Motorsports down in P9 and not quite finding the lap time. But then I say that, you can see there from P1, which is now held by James Carr, all the way down to P10 overall. It's a second that separates the top 10 drivers, and that is absolutely phenomenal. And that shows you how hard they are pushing here in this season finale, and simply improving by 1 or 2 tenths could gain you multiple places. McKinsey on an outlap here, he'll just have enough time to put in 1 more lap and see if he can improve. But speaking of trying to improve, and Zepp, as he comes across the timeline, improves to 31.327, but he still is 6 tenths off of the next driver, other newcomer in the Delta class of Alex Kodlowski, as we do see here. Kodlowski making his way through turn number 6, understeering a little bit wide, but bringing the car nicely back together as he now points it into turn number 7 and rolls on through, and he'll have 1 more lap to go. And I think for both Kodlowski and Zepp, they'll both be thinking more about just simply making sure they get a time on the board and then evolving into the race. As we say hello to Shepka there, or Matthew Shepka in the YouTube chat, saying that cone, which was being held on the front of Francois Shink's car, is an honorary Alpha participant. And I do like the joke there, the cone getting in on the action as well. And I hope you're doing well, Matt, as we do see our drivers come towards the end of their qualifying session. And speaking of coming to the end, here comes Daniel Sedino to come on through to complete another lap. Of course, he had an aborted lap last time around, and he has not improved this time. But meanwhile, whilst that's been happening, here's the fast charger of Eric Statzer, who's gone provisional pole in the Delta class with a 29.72, achieved a couple of laps ago, and now P12. Statzer really delivering when it matters most late on in the session. And what we said earlier, the Honda takes a few laps to get up to temperature. When it's in the zone, it does fly. And can Statzer hold on to that as he goes a bit deep? Well, that is going to be an aborted lap, so this final lap will not count for Statzer. Meanwhile, James Carr, who makes his way through the turn 10 chicane as he comes on out here running an all blue livery here today, as he makes his way on down the hill and in towards turn number 12. And what can the breakfast for dinner driver achieve here on what will be the run onto his final lap? We're about to find out as we ride on board here with James Carr as he heads onto his final flying lap of the qualifying season. Into turn number 1 in the Elantra here, and we're expecting the Elantra to be a very strong car as he makes his way up and over the hill, now down into turn number 3 and looking to hook this up. Of course, Shepka has already come into the pits. He's all done and dusted, but Carl's not going to take anything for granted as he makes his way down through the S's here. But you can see a bit of understeer creeping on the front end as he came into the S's and just about keeping it in track limits and keeping it settled, but runs a little bit wide. They're coming out of turn number 5 and now heads up towards turn number 6. And well, his first sector has been stronger than his previous best. He heads through sector number 2. He doesn't improve in sector 2. And now heading into sector 3 here, coming through turn 6 and 7, using the outside curb in there on the exit of 6. The entry of 7 to open up the core as much as possible. It runs a little bit wide. And will that be counted as an invalidated lap? He's going to press on here and try to finish what he started as he makes his way all the way down towards turn number 10. It's a long run here for Carr. Kodlowski has improved to P18 with 30.537 as he has made his way across that timeline. But James Carr will be the last driver to complete a qualifying lap in this season. And as he makes his way under braking into turn number 10, you see fighting at the steering wheel. They're literally siphoning the car, lifting up on that rear end under braking, and makes his way out to 10 over the crest of 11. And can Carr improve in the final sector? He did improve in subsector 3, heads on through to complete the lap. And what's it going to be? It's already pole position. He doesn't improve further, but it is James Carr who takes pole for the season finale overall and in the Alpha class. And it is going to be Eric Statzer who takes pole P12 overall in the Delta class here in an interesting turn of events. And Daniel Sedino will be right behind him in P13. But that is qualifying complete. And now our drivers get ready to go racing for one last time. And it'll be, of course, 75 minutes of racing action in the special challenge race. But as our drivers do get set here in a sunny day at the Road Atlanta circuit, of course, with that time acceleration of 8 times the normal rate, it could mean those track conditions change at any moment and clouds come over the circuit and nighttime creeps on in. And we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. We haven't seen it play out in the qualifying session too much. It looks like the lap times will continue to come on in throughout the entirety of the session. But now, let's go through the grid. So heading into the season finale then for round 13 at Road Atlanta in the Alpha Touring Challenge Season 5 as brought to you on iRacing. James Carr took pole position with 128.564 overall and in the Alpha class for breakfast for dinner, and is joined on the front row by Talksteer Racing's Matt Shepka, who starts at P2, only a 10th off a pole. Mika Hendricks and David Bout line up on row number 2, the Blue Flag Motorsports driver being joined by the breakfast for dinner driver, with then John Lauzon from Beaver Buzz Energy joined by his teammate Francois Shink, P6 there. The two line up
up side by side. We then have Justin Rhodes and Jerome Bajulaz on row at number 4, breakfast and dinner driver ahead of Beaver Buzz Energy's driver, and both of them great rivals and looking to take it all the way to the finish, with Logan McKenzie from Yellow Flag Motorsports P9 joined by Daniel Smith from Torque Steer Racing on the 5th row. Then we have Aaron Lahr, P11, joined by Daniel Sedino, who took the pole position in the end when all invalidated laps were considered. He took the pole position in the Delta class of Blue Flag Motorsports P12, and then behind them on a row at number 7, Gurkan Demir from Torque Steer Racing, Eric Statzer line up alongside the privateer P14, and then we do have Connor Achatella, P15, the championship winner in the Delta class. He doesn't need to do anything to take the championship crown, he's already got it, but he'll go for broke, there's no doubt about that. The privateer being joined by Dom Savio, another privateer, P16 on row number 8, and then we have Auguste Blondel and Alex Kotlowski who line up on row number 9, the Blue Flag Motorsports driver there, 9. He needs to try and beat Daniel Sedino to take that runner-up position in the Delta class when all is said and done today. And then we have Michael Zepp from QZ Motorsports on his debut, P19, joined by Adrian Fedorowski from QZ Motorsports, his teammate. They line up together on row number 10, and then looking behind them, well, there's nobody else because it is 10 rows, 20 drivers, and now with the grid covered, we get ready to go racing for the last time. Of course, it will be a standing start as is the tradition, and as our drivers are lining up here, 75 minutes of racing, we've got one driver waiting to go onto the grid, and that is our pole sitter of James Carr, who's leaving it to last but not least. There is James Carr, and now we await the lights. And it's lights out and away we go here for the special challenge race to conclude the season of Season 5 of the Alpha Touring Challenge. And as our drivers charge up towards Turn 1, James Carr gets a good start. Matt Shepka trying to battle him on the outside here as they head into Turn 1. Meanwhile, further behind, we see Mike Hendricks going up the inside of David Bauer, but Bauer outbreaking the velocity drivers. They make the way up the hill. Further back, meanwhile, Justin Rhodes gaining the place already versus Francois Shink, getting ahead of Shink. And this is critical for Rhodes in terms of points hunting down Lauzon as they make the way into the S's for the first time of asking. Meanwhile, behind them, Daniel Sedino had a good start, but Eric Statzer are hot at his heels as they make the way down the hill. And of course, Eric Statzer with a point to prove with a disallowed lap towards the end of the qualifying session, denying him Delta pole as they make the way in towards turn number 5. Onto the brakes they go, and Achatella behind right now in hot pursuit, already on the pressure as they make the way down towards turn number 6. But speaking of making moves into turn 6, Lauzon versus Hendricks here, and Hendricks defending on the inside as they make the way through the turn 6 right-hander and into turn 7 they go. But Julas meanwhile also battling side by side with Francois Shink here, the two teammates, as they make the way out the corner. We've already got a car running a little bit wide, bring it back onto the circuit. That was Justin Rhodes ahead of them as they make the way out of turn 7 and now down the back stretch for the first time of asking in the long run up towards turn number 10. But meanwhile up front, it's Shepka versus Carr. It's happening early as they head on down towards turn number 10. It's going to be Carr on the inside, Shepka on the outside. Shepka's got his nose ahead. Can Carr outbrake the Honda driver? No, he can't, and Shepka goes to the move, but you can see that Shepka on the outside. He's got to defend hard into turn number 10B. He does so, but it's still a drag race over the hill, and in the end the Honda just does not have the bite on the accelerator as they make the way down the hill and in towards turn number 12 to complete lap number 1. So after one lap of racing, it's James Carr who leads, followed by Shepka P2. David Bauer gaining one place at the start, up to P3, with Mike Hendricks behind him P4. John Lauzon P5, and then you have Justin Rhodes in P6, a little bit further back, followed by Logan McKenzie P7, Daniel Smith P8, and then we've got Francois Shink P9. Gurkan Demir complete shot top 10 with Jerome Pajulas best of the rest. It's Daniel Sedino who leads in the Delta class here, but battling side by side with Achatella as they make the way out the hill into turn 3. Achatella on the inside into turn 3, and I think he's going to get this done. Sedino's not giving up here as they make the way down the hill, and you can see there from Daniel Sedino in the left-hand car on your picture, now tucking in behind. He really wants this win. He wants to take the fight to Achatella to simply make it out there. He wants to have that opportunity to take one win in the class over the course of this season with Achatella on circuit. And as they make the way out of turn 5 and down towards 6, I think Achatella's going to break away now as they make the way out towards turn number 6 once again. But onto the brakes they go, and behind you can see Dom Savio here battling side by side with Fedorowski, but on the inside there into turn number 6, a bit of deceptive corner turn 6, and Savio really falling victim to the corner as they make the way on out. And Savio on the outside of turn number 7 now has Zepp for company, but Zepp on the inside of turn number 7 can't get the power down as they make the way on out. Those two corners, turn 6 and 7, you want to be on the outside, particularly turn 6 because it's a cambered corner, and therefore the more you dig into the higher banking of the corner, the more speed you take on through. But meanwhile, Achatella with connectivity problems there as he phases in and out of existence. We'll cut away from him for a brief moment as meanwhile Shepka onto the gravel here as he comes out of the turn 10 chicane. I think he's been elbowed wide by the looks of things, but he's dropped all the way from the battle for the lead
down to P13. In fact, he's going to keep dropping on down because he rejoins here. He's got no speed as he heads on through turn number 12, but Shepard's literally gone from P2 to P16 in the space of 3 corners, and it's all gone wrong early, but he's got a lot of time in order to make up that lost ground as he heads into turn number 1 on lap number 3 here and makes his way after the Delta class drivers of Federowski and Blondel as they make the way up the hill in towards turns 2 and 3 once again. As he heads onto the brakes very shortly, we can see here Shepard definitely right in the fight right now, as meanwhile Dom Savio, there's straight lines across turn number 3. I think having to jump to the pit, something's gone wrong with Dom Savio's car. I think there's a brake by wire failure as they now make the way on down. It's not brake by wire, it's old hydraulic brakes, but it's the case the brake pedal just braking on the car there, and well, it's not working out for Dom Savio as he now makes his way into the pit lane. They're going to have to take a look at the car, but meanwhile, look at this battling side by side here. Federowski versus Shepko and Blondel as well, and Blondel being caught on the outside there, and Federowski simply saying, well, if you're going to go that side to turn number 6, I'm just going to simply jump up the inside. I don't think Blondel expected that, and that's going to be a drag race out to turn 7 all the way down the back straight. But if there's one thing we can count the Elantra to be strong at, it is top speed as they make the way in the run down here through turn 8 they go up towards turn 9 very shortly, and as they get ready to charge into the braking zone, you can see Blondel tucking on in as Shepka looks to go around the outside of Federowski here. Remembering of course that Shepka, the Alpha driver, is trying to pick his way through the field as we see further up the road Pajulo's ahead of Gurk and Demir still into turn 10A, and as they make the way through, Federowski defends on the inside, but Shepka's going to go around the outside to inside. Blondel tries to creep on through as well. It's going to be the battle of the Deltas as they make the way over 11 and down into 12 here, and Blondel right now not giving in. He keeps on the inside. He's going to make Federowski go out wide as they make the way out to 12. Federowski just missing the grass there as they make the way onto another lap, and this is the battle for P4 in the Delta class as they make the way into turn 1, and Blondel's ahead for the time being as they head up the hill once again. But as they come on through, and we look from there to Francois Shink running in P7 overall, he's got the pressure behind him with Daniel Smith here as they head on down into the S's and rolling their way on through. We ride on board with Daniel Smith as he looks to try and make a move on the champion-elect as they come on through turn number 5. And as they come out of the corner and head up towards turn number 6, of course our drivers at this point will be thinking about their strategies, given they've only got 30 litres of fuel in the car to start the race with, and they'll be asking themselves the question, do I push on, do I do some early fuel saving in order to give myself a bit more of a comfort buffer as they make their way deeper and deeper into this race. But as they come through the right hand here, we can see that Smith just not getting a good run compared to Shink. They come out of 7 and back onto the back straight, and definitely a lot of hype in this race already. I can see you there, Grisba, in the YouTube chat saying a hype, and I agree with you 110%. And if it's only been 6 minutes of racing come the end of this run, and we've seen already so many battles, but unfortunately one retirement by the sounds of things, or at least he's in the pit lane at the moment. Dom Savio, they're taking a look at that brake pedal. I think something has gone wrong with the brakes on the car, but they can get him back on out. We've still got plenty more battling to come, and anything can happen before it's all said and done here at Road Atlanta as our drivers make their way through the turn 10 chicane, and Smith just not able to get the run that he so desires as they head on down towards turn number 12. But as they come and charge on through to complete this lap, we must look from the battle for P7 to a bit further down the road, in particular Achatella versus Daniel Cedino as they make the way into turn number 1 once again, and after getting ahead of Cedino, it looks like Achatella's just not able to break away here, and Cedino definitely making sure to stay right in the wheel tracks of his fellow Velocity driver as they make the way through 2 and into 3. Onto the anchors they go once again, and coming on down the hill through turn number 4, and Eric Stats as well. Do not count the privateer in the Honda Civic Type R out. He does seem to really have an ace up his sleeve. He's got a lot of pace in that car, and he is hanging with the Delta class leaders. There is no doubt about that. And of course Eric Stats, after picking up that win at Belle Isle in the season opener, it just never seemed to come to him once again after that, and he's looking here to potentially end on a high, and he would love to of course pick up a win in the season finale. That would mean a huge amount to him as he comes through turn 6 and up into 7 in the 789 car. But as he comes on through the right hander through turn number 7 he goes, staying right behind the Velocitas at the moment. We know that the Honda Civic versus the Honda Veloster are very similar in terms of their pace, and the Honda lacks a little bit in terms of acceleration and top end, but it has a slight advantage in the corners. But the two put together are very near the margins with each other. We've got Kotlowski into the pit lane, and well, I think Kotlowski has gone into the pits for some repair work to the car, and that is unfortunate for Kotlowski earlier on in this race. But well, as they make the way under braking here into the turn 10 chicane, well, Aaron Larkin P11 right now, the Alpha driver must be thinking, can you not all just leave me be, as we ride on board the gearbox here, the Torque Steer Racing driver. The reason I say that is for the simple reason is he comes through turn number 12 to head to the end of this lap. He's got 3 Delta drivers behind him, who are all salivating the prospect of picking him off as they make their way into turn number 1. Of course, remember, there's not class points up for grabs in any of these races. It's always overall points that all our drivers get as they make their way on up the hill and into turns 2 and 3. Onto the brakes they go, and Aaron Lara at this point, he's only 6 tenths behind Gurkensmere, his teammate, but that 6 tenths margin, he does not want to let it open up. And speaking of opening up, you can see here that Daniel Smith has fallen back from Francois Shink and now has a lot of pressure on his 6 with regards to Jerome Bajulas as they make their way out of turn number 5 and head up towards turn 6 themselves. But as they come charging on through into the right-hander shortly, onto the brakes they will go. Gurkensmere just behind this, and I wonder where Daniel Smith at this point is becoming the cork in the bottle, because it does look as though the Waifu Mobile here being chased very hard by the Beaver Buzz Energy driver behind as they make their way through turn 7 and onwards towards turn number 10. But will it be a simple case of a melodic ride here, or will the Project Melody driver be caught wanting as he makes his way up towards turn number 10? And what you can see here, I think already Jerome Bajulas is looking to use the draft here, and also the straight line speed advantage of the Elantra to get the move done. Smith's going to defend in the middle of the road to the inside as they head into the braking zone here. Onto the anchors they both go, and Bajulas is going to hang it all the way around. Can Smith outbrake his rival? He tries to force the issue and get Bajulas to go deep, but Bajulas has none of it, and in the end they emerge from the corner with Jerome Bajulas now up to P8, Smith down to P9, and Gurkensmere looking at this and thinking, how can I get on through as well past his own teammate as they make the way out through turn number 12 and onwards to another lap. But now it's all about the Talksteer racing drivers stepping over the top of one another's toes as they make the way into turn number 1. Meanwhile, not to forget about our race leaders, here is your race leader of James Carr, the breakfast for dinner driver here, running the all-blue livery, and as he comes on through at the S's and up towards turn number 5, look at Micah Hendricks right behind, and Hendricks, having started in P3, has made a very strong start to this race and looks to be on the move for the lead as they head up towards turn number 6. And we know that Hendricks, and well, if anybody has any doubts as to Hendricks' pace, I ask you to go all the way back to round number 3 at Fuji Speedway, where we saw just how strong Hendricks was on his debut in the series, where the 473 driver Blue Flag Motorsports absolutely flew at the Japanese circuit, and he is flying right now as he makes his way down the back straight here. Of course, Carr in the Elantra will have that straight line speed advantage in order to mitigate the slipstream advantage that Hendricks has as they make the way on down. But as they make the way all the way down towards the braking zone for turn number 10 here, it does seem as though Hendricks not quite close enough in order to make the move as they head into the braking zone. And as they come on through the left right here, I noticed the little play on words with regards to what is Carr Risma's username in the YouTube chat, which is James Carr, and I do apologise, James, for not realising that sooner, but very clever play on your username and your surname as a result. And I can understand if you're running the all-blue livery, and that's to hide the new livery of season 6, and thank you for clarifying that. And as the drivers make the way down through turn number 12 right now, everybody's starting to settle into a sense of rhythm here, but we are seeing a little bit in the battle here for P6. McKinsey under major pressure as we see Shink behind looking to make the move for P6 on the Yellow Flag Motorsports driver, but rolling their way down through 3 and into 4 now. It's one thing to catch through here, it's another thing to pass as we look backwards from McKinsey's car and heading all the way out towards turn number 5 they go. They're heading into the braking zone and into that left-hander at turn number 5. McKinsey at this point going a little bit wider, but that's not going to cost him any too much time as they make their way up towards turn number 6. You can see Shink constantly watching his rival's movements here and thinking about where can he go for the move. Well, I think given the fact they're both running in the same machine, for Shink it's all about an exit out of turn number 7 and getting the run down towards turn number 10. That's where the opportunities will open up. When you're in identical machinery in terms of top end speed, you might have slightly different setups from the car that affect that top end speed to a small degree with regards to the rear wing you're running and everything else in terms of the car itself. But otherwise, being in this draft, you can be hitting similar top speeds, and as you can see here, they get closer and closer to one another as they head down towards turn number 10 and into the braking zone they go. Shink thinks about it, he thinks about it again. I think he's going to commit this time. He was a little bit doubtful about whether he was close enough to go for it. McKinsey goes a bit deep, but Shink's made to respect the fact he's still there on the inside into turn 10B, and in the end, Francois Shink gets it done there in a rather hesitant move, but he's made it stick and now moves up to P6. His next target will be Rhodes as they head up towards turn at number 1, but Justin Rhodes is 2 seconds up the road, and closing that gap down is easier said than done when they're pushing as hard as they are. Meanwhile, speaking of pushing, here is Shepka trying to push his way past Daniel Sedino into turn number 1. The Honda Civic driver, of course, being knocked aside coming out of the turn 10 chicane earlier on in this race as they make the way out the hill, but Shepka not close enough to make the move there, and Sedino holding on, of course, for Daniel Sedino at this point. He does not want to lose any overall points because of the simple reason he's in the championship fight for P2, the runner-up spot in the Delta Championship versus Gus Blondell, who's down in P17 at the moment, but Cedino will not take any less points for granted as they make their way through the S's and into turn number 5, because every point is critical in making sure that dream comes to fruition. But Cedino runs wide, and this is going to give Shepka all the space he needs in the run on the outside to turn number 6, and you can see that Daniel Cedino yielding there, I think realising, you know what, perhaps I'm pushing it a bit too hard and trying to keep somebody who's faster than me at bay as they make the way through turns 6 and 7 and down to the back straight. And what we mean by that, in terms of somebody who's faster than me, of course, naturally in racing, you want to keep the faster driver behind you when you're defending for position, but I think he's going to be expecting that Shepka is naturally going to pass him at some point, given the pace that Shepka has, and for Cedino, it'd be wiser to let Shepka pull him up to the next battle up the road, which is Statson versus Achatella, as they make their way down towards turn number 10, because for Daniel Cedino, that means he'll be battling with the Delta leaders rather than an Alpha driver who's trying to pick his way back up through the field to the Alpha leaders as they make their way through turn 10 and head up towards 11, but as they make their way down through 11 and into 12, we speak about Connor Achatella, and here he is, continues to hold on to the Delta lead, runs a little bit wide there, just keeps the car on the tarmac, just about coming out to turn number 12, and goodness me, the number 55 driver here absolutely hammering the car around the circuit, and as he makes his way up the hill, that's Aaron Long Gherkensmere right in front of him, and I think he's trying to pick his way on bars, given that the dirty air that's coming off of the back of the Elantra drivers in front of him, and it might just be unsettling the car a little bit too much as he makes his way down the hill. As they come down through 4 and into the S's once again, you see Gherkensmere very comfortably leading this group of drivers. He's got Daniel Smith just in front of him, but they all seem to be running quite comfortable. Demir behind Smith is running comfortably. I don't know about Aaron Law. I think he might be struggling a little bit in the dirty air of Demir in front, and the same for Achatella, who's all over the back of Aaron Law as they head into turn number 6. But the problem for what is there, Achatella, as soon as he comes out of turn number 7, he's going to be seeing face first, which is the top speed of the Elantra as they come out of the corner. We have got a car off just ahead, and that's Alex Kotlowski, who is a lap down now after that early pit stop. He's pulled off onto the grass to let everybody on through on the lead lap as they head on down the back straight here and up towards turn number 10 once again. But it's the long charge here, so we're about to complete the first 15 minutes of the race and still have an hour to go, and Law has got Achatella getting closer and closer. Will Achatella look for the move? No, he backs off here and waits his turn once again as they make their way through the chicane and up the hill, but as they come charging on through, it's going to be a quick run on down the hill and in towards turn number 12, and with Demir in P10 here, making his way as the leader of the group on through. Law behind, and then we do have Achatella very close, and can he now look for the move, the Delta champion, as he makes his way into turn number 1. He continues to think about that little sniff to the inside, but he can't commit further than that. Law just simply has a little bit more confidence on the brakes, but that confidence may have caught him out as he's understeered a little bit, and Achatella comes on through, and Eric Statzer looks at a move on the inside into turn 3. It's very near the knuckle as they come down the hill. Statzer can't get the move done, and right now I think Statzer will be absolutely fuming at the fact that Achatella was able to pick the move off and he wasn't able to come on through with his Delta rival as they make their way through turn number 5, and now Statson's got to find a way on through simple pace and strategy versus what is Aaron Law as they make their way out towards turn number 6, because I don't think Lars going to make that mistake twice as they head into the double right complex. But as they come out of 6 and into 7, Statson takes a look, he goes very late on the brakes, they're almost clipping the rear of Aaron Law, and if that doesn't say I am coming through whether you like it or not, I don't know what does. But you see Statson giving it everything as they make the way down the back straight once again. Shepka's just behind him, and the thing of course for Shepka is, will he try and make the move here and then go into the fight of Aaron Law in return, as just in front of them you can see Gherkensmere after being given a comfortable run now under huge pressure from Achatella as they come down to turn 10, but no way through. We want Shepka up the inside of Statson. Statson not fighting this, recognising that Shepka's going to pick his way through eventually, and therefore I think Shepka deciding, and Statson at this point deciding, right, let's both go after Lard together as they make their way down the hill and in towards turn number 12. But as they come through the right hander in turn 12, that wonderful apex camera, you can see how fast they're coming on through, and now making their way across that timeline once again. And as they head in towards turn number 1, Shepka right now continuing to make his way up through the field. It's almost like one of the major crusades of motorsport in history here, as the Talkstick Racing driver looking to try and get himself right back up into that top 5. But he has got a long way to go in this race, and he's got to pick them off one by one. He can't be thinking about the battle for the win, he's got to be thinking about the battle for each position as they come on through onto another lap. Meanwhile, speaking of the win or the lead,
After Hendricks was looking quite close earlier on, he has backed off a little bit to 6/10 of a James car as they come out of turn number 7. But then again, Hendricks at this point might be playing the role of just simply fuel saving and strategy over speed at this point, because Hendricks now has the initiative in terms of he can choose to react to how Carl plays the first round of pit stops. And as we said earlier, we're expecting most of our drivers here today to do a minimum of 2 scheduled stops to take on the fuel to get them to in. We're not expecting tyre changes, given the tyres normally do last somewhere in the region of about 70 to 90 minutes, depending on the circuit on these touring car racing machines, before a tyre swap is needed. They will feel the pinch on the tyres towards the end of the race, but right now, as we do look a little bit further back, we can see Achatella coming past Gerken Demir for P10 overall, and Achatella really flying right now. But meanwhile, behind them, Aaron Lahr holding off Shepka as they come through turn number 10. But they are all battling these midfield positions, battling for the right to be inside the top 10. But now Achatella makes his way into the top 10 once more as they come on past turn number 12 again and come roaring on through to the next lap as they come charging on down the round here and head on to what is for them lap number 13. It's all to play for in terms of the pit stops that are upcoming, and if we're to split the race into equal stints, in terms of 3 equal stints, we're going to be expecting those first pit stops to come within the next 7 minutes, for the simple reason it'll be 25-minute stints apiece. But will that be the story? That will be the question. But as they come on down through the S's here, I don't think anybody right now is thinking about splitting the race up into equal stints and doing it all with regards to all nice and equal. They're all battling hard, and Aaron Lahr in particular right now is trying to keep what is his teammate at bay as they make the way up towards turn number 6 as they come charging on through. I look at my commentary box window, I can see that Michael Zepp has come into the pit lane. Indeed, that's confirmed on our timing tower, and we've also got Kotlowski in again. I think Kotlowski has had an off track. We've picked up some damage on the car, but as they make the way up through the right hander and now heading all the way down the back straight, all the way out towards turn number 10, we can see here that Aaron Lahr right now again just able to use that speed plus also the toe of Demir in front in order to keep Shepka at bay. And I think it's a bit awkward for the teammates because they're all racing for position. Indeed, it is Talksteer racing P11 through to P13, but they're all running their own races and not really thinking about the others at the moment in terms of yielding and whatnot. But it's the end of the season, so they're going for it. Speaking of going for it, here as they come down through what is their turn at number 12, it's John Lauzon versus Rhodes as they make the way out towards turn number 1. Lauzon's going to be on the outside here, and Justin Rhodes taking a sniff of the move for P4, but he couldn't quite get it committed. And as they make the way up the hill through 1 into 2, Justin Rhodes right on the back here of the Beaver Buzz Energy Drive, who, as we ride on board with the breakfast for dinner drive, heading into turn 3. As they come down through 4 and into the S's once again. The thing for Rhodes is now really revealed his hand in terms of he thinks he's got the pace to make the move, but the question is, can he make it stick? Because if we know anything about John Lauzon, is that he is a very tricky driver to pass. He has this magical way of putting the car back in front when it doesn't deserve to be there. From the attacking driver's perspective, he thinks he's got it all said and done, and then Lauzon will just magically rematerialise in front or right alongside. As they come through turn number 6 and into 7, I can tell that Shepka has found his way past what is Lahr, and also Stats has gone through versus Lahr as well, as meanwhile we continue to watch this battle for P4 unfold in front of us. But as they come all the way up towards turn number 10 here, Justin Rhodes has fallen back a little bit. 4 tenths is the gap, and Lauzon in fact looking a little bit faster on the straightaway here despite the toe. And then again, could Justin Rhodes just be short shifting the car to do a little bit of fuel saving or coasting its way on through? Was they made the way down into turn number 10. I think it's Lauzon actually lifting off the throttle here before the braking zone. You can see how much they were closing up on one another, and I don't think that's purely slipstream. I think Lauzon is lifting and coasting into these braking zones, these heavy braking zones, in order to save a bit of the car. James Carr sets a new fastest lap of the race at 28.536. He is absolutely flying up front with Hendricks a further 10th off as they make the way on to the next lap. But as they come charging on through here, Rose continue to look for that potential move, but it's not coming so far. He's going to have to wait as they head up the hill. But further back, we talked about it, and here is Shepka, made his way up into P12, got ahead of Aaron Lahr. We're not quite sure how it unfolded, but Eric Statzer coming on through as well, and Statzer, well, as he comes across that timeline to go on to another lap, currently P2 in the Delta class, P13 overall. He's safe from the rest of the Delta drivers behind us, Savino, Blondel and Fedorowski, who are on the lead lap, as we hear that Kotlowski has retired from the race, as has Zepp. We've had 2 retirements so far in the Delta class, but as they come on through, of course, for Statzer, his main focus will be on trying to hunt down Achatella, and Achatella, here he is, the Veloster driver, running the standard Hyundai colours here, the N Racing Performance colours. He heads up towards turn number 6 and makes his way into the rain zone. The privateer looking comfortably in control of the Delta class lead at the moment as they come into the double right complex of 6 and 7. But behind Gerken Demir and Shepka, both looking at the back of that Veloster right now, and both I think celebrating the prospect of making a return move into the top 10 as they come on out, as they make the way all the way down on that back straight now. Of course, Achatella will not have any slipstream to his advantage. So can Demir get close enough through the toe into the braking zone, or will he have to wait his turn once again? Well, I think he's going to have to wait. He's just not close enough, not getting the exit out of turn number 7 that he needs. And that Veloster is very quick off the mark in the lower gears, it must be said, as they come through the chicane. But meanwhile, being quick off the mark, he was quick off the start, and he's going even quicker still as he sets another fastest lap of the race, another 28.53, but just a little bit quicker than the previous one. James Carr is continuing to push now. I think he's been given the hurry-up call from the pit crew. He'll be in soon, given the fact he's over that gap up to Hendricks to just over a second as they come through the S's and into turn number 5. Hendricks is chasing him hard here, but Carr is really putting the hammer down as they make the way up towards turn number 6. Meanwhile, further back, here is the run of the rest of the field. That's David Bow, who's just gone through the camera, then nails on, then Rhodes, then Shink following on behind. And Francois Shink at this point, of course, just watching and waiting in the wings as they make the way onwards towards turn number 6. But you can see the battle for P3 spreading out a little bit at this point in time, and David Bow in a comfortable position, but he is at quite a margin off of Hendricks by comparison. David Bow almost 6 seconds, in fact almost 7 seconds we should really say, off of Hendricks, and Hendricks and Carr are absolutely on a mission right now to chase one another down for the lead of this race. Meanwhile, Bowers just comfortably holding on to that P3 as they make their way down the back straight and not feeling too much pressure from Lawson or Rhodes or Shink behind. Meanwhile, a bit further back, Aaron Lahr, we talked about him falling behind Stats and Shepka earlier on. We're chasing after Stats here, and he's getting closer and closer as they run the way on down the back straight. We ride on board here with Aaron Lahr, the Torque Racing drive, who in that drive you can see the Elantra really coming on strong here in terms of top end speed. Stats is good event to the inside, but I think Aaron Lahr's going to go all in on the brakes. If you can see Stats are also saying in return, you're not going to outbrake me into the corner. And Stats, oh goodness me, there's contact between the two of them as they come through the corner, and Stats rejoins, but he loses the place tonight, and also Sedano as they make the way back up to speed. Francois Shink's into the pit lane for his first scheduled stop, so Shink decides to come on in then and go for the undercut versus the rest of the field, but that is going to be something we have to keep our eyes on. Meanwhile, the Stats versus Lahr incident, where I think Stats there went a little bit deep on the brakes, and I think he was trying to squeeze what was there, Lahr into essentially backing out, but I think neither driver wanted to back out, and Aaron Lahr giving the tap to Stats. I'm not justifying Lahr giving the tap whatsoever, but it did look as though they're both of them wanted to fight for a bit of room that was closed. I think Stats have got the defence done. It's going to be a tricky one for the stewards to unpick post-race as they make the way back up to speed. Meanwhile, a bit further up the road, here is Shepka coming on past Demir as they make the way towards turn number 6. And I think Kirk and Demir, they're swapping places with Shepka as they came into turn number 6. Didn't look as though the move was forced on the situation. I think Shepka being given the opportunity to chase down Achatella as the slightly faster driver at this point in the race as they make the way all the way down the back straight here, and Achatella now will have a very fast and furious Honda behind him as they make the way all the way out towards turn number 10. It's something like in the very first Fast and Furious movie. It's not a spoon engine in that Honda Civic, indeed it is a Honda race engine as they make the way on down towards turn number 10. But coming onto the brakes here, we can see that Shepka right now just waiting in the wings, as meanwhile into the pits comes David Bow from P3. He's decided to come on in then and go for a bit of an early pit stop as well, but McKinsey peels on in as well as they make the way on through, and now we can see Bajulad's coming on in as they make the way all the way down into the pit lane, and this is the sign of the first pit stops coming in, and whoever's been able to do fuel saving will have an advantage later on. But of course the driver who we've got our eyes on at the moment is Francois Shink, as he was the first to pit a lap ago on what was lap number 16, and as he comes out towards the end of lap number 17, where will he feel to back out? Well, Shink had coming from P6, so we would expect it to come out ahead of the likes of Shepka and also Bajulas, but what about David Bow? That'll be the big question as we do see Shink heading towards turn number 1. What about David Bow? Here's Bow coming out the pit lane, and Shink comes on through to take the position off of David Bow, so Shink jumps up a position already, and meanwhile behind Logan McKinsey comes out, also Bajulas as well, and then Shepka comes on roaring through as Gus Blondell's coming to the pit lane from further back and down the field. But right now Francois Shink has made the initial undercut work, and that's the delta there. It is a gap of what is almost 2 seconds as they come through the S's in turn 5 and up the hill as they come charging on down towards turn number 6. But Shink is absolutely flying right now, and do not count him out for being on that podium. I think here he has got a strategic card up his sleeve, and he is now showing it in this first round of pit stops. Meanwhile into the pits as well, the two leaders come on in. James Carr, your leader, ahead of Hendricks, and now the question will be, How much fuel saving has Hendricks done over the course of his initial stint? Can he jump ahead of Carr, or can they be side by side coming out of the pits? John Lauzon comes in as well from P3. Justin Rose just behind him. Daniel Smith makes his way in. They all peel on in, so the fuel tank has gone as far as they can take it. Aaron Lars in behind Gurkha De Beer as well. Sedino and Statzer, but where is Francois Shink? Here is the fast charger right now, the man who's on a mission to jump as many places as possible in the first round of pit stops. The brake disc still glowing red at the rear of the car. It shows you how hard he's pushing, and Carr and Hendricks are leaving the pit lane. They've already made the way on out, so they will retake the lead of this race. But what about Shink versus Lauzon and also Rhodes? As Shink comes to the timeline, we look to the blimp camera here. He comes on through. Lauzon making his way out the pit lane. It's going to be close, but I think Shink's going to jump the pair of them. It's going to be literally side by side as they come up the hill, and Shink has just about done it. He's jumped up into P3 as they make the way through turns 2 and 3 and down into 4, and that goes to show you how strong the undercut is. Now, of course, the question will be, will Shink have to pay the price for this later on in the race, when of course he's pushed the car harder early, so now the front tyres may not be as strong later on in the race? That'll be the big question as he comes out of turn number 5. Lauzon behind right now will be looking at this and thinking, how on earth did my teammate just jump effectively 3 places with a single pit stop? Well, it all comes in the fact that Shink's lap, that lap just then was a 28.95 compared to what some of the other laps have been, and that was an absolutely ferocious lap. And as they make the way out of turn number 7, well, Lauzon's right there now. Will the Canadian go for the move on his teammate, or will he simply play rear gunner at this point as they make the way down towards turn number 10? On paper, you would argue that Lauzon wants to be ahead of Shink. Given that Abrams is not in attendance today, Shink doesn't have anything to play for. Lauzon does for P3 in the championship, but how will they negotiate this, or will they simply just use Shink to give Lauzon a bit more fuel saving capacity as they head into the chicane? Well, no change this time around, but we can see the change there is that we're Shink out P3 now, Lauzon P4, Rhodes P5, and David Bauer P6. And the breakfast for dinner drivers here have definitely been jumped. They have not been having their dinner. If anything, they have been lapped up, and they have been made a snack of as they go on to stint number 2 here. But of course, they could bounce back in the next stint. They may have to change their strategies to react accordingly. But as they come on to lap number 20, Logan McKenzie not too far behind as well in the special livery for Yellow Flag Motorsports in the season finale. And as he comes charging up the hill and down towards turn number 3 here, onto the brakes he goes. He'll be looking at this and thinking, okay, there's been a change up front. I can still get into the fight for the final spot on the podium as he comes on down. Eric Statzer back into the pit lane, and I don't know what's gone wrong for Eric Statzer, but he's come on in again. This is for a second stop, and well, if it looks to be, well, he's going to be parking up the car. So did they forget to put fuel in the car on the first pit stop? I'm not sure, but he's making it 2 stops already, and it's not a drive-through penalty, but this effectively means we've got Achatella right now. He's going to be absolutely comfortable. 9, he's the Delta leader by a major margin. But meanwhile, what he's not going to have any comfort from is that Shepka is right on his 6 as they make the way through turn at number 7 and head on down towards turn number 10. Once again, the Torque racing driver here is absolutely on a recovery drive right now as he comes charging on down towards turn number 10 in the long charge here and in the slipstream as well. But of course, the Veloster has the initial gains in the acceleration. A flash of the lights there from Shepka. He's trying to say to Achatella, I'm coming on through whether you like it or not. Now, will Achatella respond? He doesn't respond as they make their way onto the brakes. Now, Shepka jumps up to P9. Meanwhile, up front, I can tell you that the time in town does not lie there. James Carr just set a new personal best of 28.439. Meanwhile, Hendricks has just gone even faster and raised the fastest lap of the race to a 28.27. The 2 leaders are flying at the front of the field right now, separated by 1.2 seconds. And Carr is giving it everything he's got, but Hendricks is responding as well as we look from the battle for P9 to the race leaders, as aforementioned. And you can see here is Carr, and here comes Hendricks behind. And Hendricks right now not really gaining after that first pit stop. Both of them enter the pit stand, very similar pit stop times to one another, and it's all going to come down to in the end who drops it on circuit and who is able to keep the consistency going. But I think both drivers are going to feel the pinch come the end of the race. Now, of course, what Hendricks does have in his favour, so long as he manages those front tyres on paper, in theory, we should expect the velocity to be stronger towards the end of the race in terms of tyre degradation. However, we have also seen what happens when drivers push the Veloster hard. It can wear those tyres down very quickly, much like the Elantra, which has been piloted by James Carr. And of course, what we also do know is that Carr quite strong in tyre conservation when he needs to be here. So we'll have to wait and see whether the number 19 driver can keep those tyres in the right window all the way to the finish and make
sure he's got tread to play with as he goes deeper and deeper in. Meanwhile, behind Lauzon, again, right behind teammate Francois Shink, but not looking to make the move yet. I think they are trying to play the role of what is pace car of Shink versus Lauzon behind, and Lauzon using this as an opportunity to fuel save as they make their way down the hill. But right now, Francois Shink definitely looking to hang on in there in P3, but Lauzon is getting very close here as they come across that timeline and make the way towards turn number 1. Lauzon thinks about it there into turn number 1, I think, trying to send a little bit of a mental message there to Shink to say to him that you're going to need to get a move on soon. I know you're my teammate, but I've got Rhodes behind me, and I don't think Justin Rhodes is going to respect the fact that we're 2 teammates. So they make the way down through turn number 4 and into the S's once again. And of course, every lap that Lauzon plays behind Shink in terms of being in the dirty air, he is putting extra heat into the front brakes and the front tyres, and therefore Lauzon right now be feeling as though he's picking up a little bit of extra degradation on those front tyres, where he's having to do even more conservation. But meanwhile, behind Rhodes having a little bit of a run wide, coming out to turn number 5 as we're to understand it off camera. And now he has got teammate there, David Bauer, coming on through. And I think, in fact, it wasn't a run wide. I've just had it corrected in my ear. I think Rhodes lifting off a little bit and letting what was Bauer on through, coming out of turn number 5. They swapped the 2 breakfast for dinner machines around here, and I think they may feel as though David Bauer can be the battering ram here in terms of the pace he can deploy, and Rhodes will come on through behind him as they make the one down. And we've seen this before in a number of rounds where breakfast for dinner have swapped the drivers around midway through a stint in order to have their fastest driver up front, and have tried to work it together so all of the drivers come through together when a move is made. And Bauer has normally been the tip of the spear when they go for this sort of attempt, and as they make their way out of turn number 10, the breakfast for dinner driver right now has to keep our eyes on the pace. The last lap from David Bauer is a 28.272. Meanwhile, going on to this next lap as he comes across the timeline, well, from Shink it was a 28.688. David Bauer at 28.653. Yes, they've made the swap in order to get David Bauer there to put the pace in as they make the way through turn number 1 once again and up the hill. And David Bauer now is going to be putting in some qualifying laps here. But what I can also tell you, over the last 3 laps, we have seen inside the top 10 everybody putting personal best lap after lap here. They may be on tyres that have already seen 30 minutes of racing, but our top 10 drivers, in fact most of the field, but sitting in the top 10, everybody is putting in personal best after personal best. They are all absolutely gunning for gold here at Road Atlanta. It is beautiful to see as they come down towards turn number 6 once again for our leaders. And well, speaking of our exact leaders, here is James Carr, who continues to lead, and it is almost as if here they are exchanging lap times as if it's emails or text messages between friends, because right now that last lap, a 28.31 for James Carr. From Nick Hendricks it was a 28.32, and as they make the way down towards turn number 10, the gap between these two is not going anywhere. It's oscillating from 8 tenths to 1.2 seconds. It depends on which side of the lap they're on in terms of who's the faster driver on a given lap, and that shows you how hard they are pushing one another as they come roaring through turn number 12 and making the way to that timeline again. A 28.455 for Carr, a 28.332 for Hendricks here. Hendricks gains a little bit of time back as they make the one to the next lap. Meanwhile, in the run down through turn number 12 now, here is Lauzon once again behind his teammate Francois Shink as they come to the timeline, and Lauzon is looking faster. Meanwhile, David Bauer just sets a personal best of 28.412. He's definitely going all in here, as meanwhile, my good lord, now that's another fastest lap on the timing tower, but it's from P9 driver for Torque Steer Racing, Shepka, at 28.272. Shepka right now is also just absolutely tearing up the tarmac here. Boy, it's going to be one of those cases whereby Shepka, he's got nothing to lose here. Given the fact he was elbowed out earlier on, he's got to try and recover this race, and recover it he will at this rate as he chases after Pajulas. He's 22.5 seconds off of the leaders, but Shepka is continuing to go hunting as they make the way up towards turn number 6. And you can see Achatella behind trying to follow Shepka's example as they make the way into the right-hander. They're coming on through here as our drivers make the way now up towards turn number 7. We're almost at the halfway point of proceedings, and as they make the way out to the right-hander, we'll be at that halfway point when we do hit the 37.5-minute mark, so not long before we transition over into that situation. And in terms of our ambient conditions at the moment, we've got quite a bit of cloud starting to come back over the circuit after the skies open up a little bit, and we are expecting this race to potentially go into the night if we're not too careful. But speaking of being careful, here comes the battle for P8 between Machulas and Shepka. And Shepka's got to be careful. He doesn't want to pick up any damage because he is one of the fastest cars on the circuit. And I say that Hendricks takes the fastest lap, but that's by the by as they make the way out. But Pajulas, they're defending against Shepka through turn number 10. But what you can see Shepka's trying to do here, he's trying to get a feel for where where his opponent's going to put the car, because I think Shepka's got the confidence in himself. He knows he's the faster driver. He can get this move done, but he needs to pick the right time to pick off Bajulas, because if there's even a slight knock between the two drivers, that may take all the wind out of Shepka's sails as they make their way up through 1 and in towards 2 and 3. Hendricks has just set a new fastest lap of the race at 28.14, and Shepka, I think if he gets clear air, could go even faster, if not match that as a minimum, as they make their way on down the hill. But with Hendricks setting that new fastest lap, the battle for the lead is now down to 6 tenths of a second. We will cut to that shortly, but right now we cut to on board with the Talk Stiff Racing driver Shepka as he comes out of turn 5. He gets the better run out of 5, but he hasn't got a long enough run here to turn number 6, or has he? Now Bajulas holds to left here. Shepka's going to think about it. He really does think about it there. You could see on the steering wheel thinking, do I go for it? But then I think he recognised, if I go for it now, I'm going to be vulnerable in the run out of turn 7 down the back straight. But he looks to go a little bit deep there into turn number 7 to intentionally take a late apex and get the stronger run. But you can see here Bajulas just has so much speed in that Elantra as they now make their way up through the gearbox here towards top gear, as they come charging on down towards turn number 10. Bajulas too far away from McKinsey in front to get a distant toe that's going to make a major difference. But from return here as they head towards turn number 10, Shepka's quite a way back. He backs off here, decides to back the car off, lift off the throttle, save a bit of fuel. He can't go from that far back. I think if it was towards the end of the race, he may consider going for it from quite far back. He might try and lick the stamp and send it, but right now there's no stamps available in the car, and instead he's going to have to wait his turn, and the envelope's not open. But as they make the way down through turn number 12 and on to the next lap, we now make our way into the second half of the race, and we cut over to our race leaders here, and it's James Carr versus Hendricks still. And on that lap, James Carr was faster by 1.5 tenths versus Hendricks. So whilst Hendricks is looking to be the faster of the two drivers as they head up towards turn number 6, James Carr is responding here, and I think Hendricks is pushing the car to its utmost. But I think in doing so, what he is also risking is taking a lot of life out of those tyres, and for Hendricks it's a fine balance as they make the way out of turn 7. Carr runs a little bit wide. That's not going to cost him too much time, but Carr's definitely feeling the heat as they head on down towards turn number 10. And we say hello to Saiga there in the YouTube chat. Hope you're doing well. We've got a lot of fans of Shepka in the chat as we hear that Shepka's continuing to try and find his way on past with Bajulas heading out to turn 5 into 6, and again they're all clustered together. McKinsey's had a bit of a slow run out of turn number 5, but this is going to really compact all our drivers together as we watch to the blimp camera here as they make the way down the back straight. You can see McKinsey weaving there to the left hand side, then bringing it back over to the right hand side. That pins Bajulas to the inside, and Shepka's going for it here as he tucks in behind McKinsey, and you can see the overspeed building. But the problem for Shepka now as they make the way on down the hill is he's boxed in behind McKinsey with Bajulas on his inside, and Bajulas has responded well here as they make the way into turn 10, but Bajulas looks up the inside. McKinsey holds firm there, he doesn't let it daunt him, and as they make the way out of turn number 10, meanwhile whilst this is happening, also the leaders are kicking off. It's only 1.5 attempts between the two of them, but we see the group of 4 here make the way through. Oh my good lord, and it looks like then McKinsey almost losing the car as he fights the steering with Shepka up the inside into turn number 1. They're going to go 3 wide, and will Shepka make it 2? Moves for 1 as they come through turn 1. There's door to door there as they head up the hill. There's more contact, and Shepka really giving it everything he's got as they come through 2 into 3. Side by side into turn number 3. Down the hill they go. McKinsey defends into turn number 4, and Shepka can't get the double pass done. He almost had it, but he's going to open the door here through the S's. Oh my goodness, and it's the case that Shepka loses the rear of the car. Now, was there contact there with what was Bajulas coming through? We're not 100% sure. We can't take a look back. I think there might have been a tiny tap, although the camera was not flattering in terms of being able to make a verdict. But Shepka has had it all go wrong again after literally trying to give it everything and almost pulling off a 2-for-1 special in the run through turn 1. The S's have called him out, and now he's got to do it again from P11. And well, now Shepka will be thinking, what has he done to the car in terms of damage on the contact, but also have the tyres got the life he needs to be able to push hard once again. Meanwhile, with all that happening, McKinsey here in P7, the yellow flag motorsport driver, has got Bajulas putting the pressure on, and the Beaver Buzz energy driver here, he's definitely drank his Beaver Buzz before going racing. He makes a move like that as they come through turn 10 and gets the move done for P7 up the inside of McKinsey. Now, will McKinsey respond into turn 1? I don't think McKinsey's got the run here as they come through the right-hander of 12, and they head up towards turn number 1 once again as we say hello there there to Lab Mob 1 in the Twitch chat. They're saying that was one wild lap, and that was at lap number 27 there. We've still got plenty more to go, but I think lap number 27 is definitely going to go down in the books as a crazy lap of the season. As meanwhile, the craziness does not stop. It continues with Laos on here in P4 under pressure from David Bow, and he's not been able to hang along behind his teammate Francois Shink in the run through the second half of this current stint. And as they make the way in towards turn number 6, now John Lauzon has got pressure coming, and you can see it there. It's very evident and very clear. It's the angry grills. There's a bit of contact there between Lauzon and what was Bow coming through turn number 7. Lauzon parking on Apex, and Bow giving him a little bit of a kiss on the rear end to say to you, can go a little bit faster than that, I believe in you. And as they make the way down the back straight here and head up towards turn number 5, well, these touring car machines can be knocked about a little bit, but not as much as they used to be able to, given the recent physics changes in iRacing for the touring car racing class. But still, they can go door to door and can have little bumps and scrapes. And right now, John Lauzon definitely having to think about where he puts the car to keep David Bower at bay as they make the way through turn 10 and up the hill. But Bower gives a really good run here as they make the way down for 11 and into 12. Bower's going to look on the outside to inside, cut that line here into 1. Will he be able to get it done? Well, they head in towards turn 1, and Lauzon immediately responds by going defensive into the right-hander. But of course, it's a tricky corner to defend into, so when you're on that outside, if you can carry the speed up the hill, well, he's not going to be carrying the speed as Dalberg goes a bit deep and runs it straight on, but runs it across the grass here in order to avoid rejoin. That's the right thing to do. And instead, David Bow drops back behind Justin Rhodes. He loses 1 place in all of that, but brave about to go round the outside, but just carrying a little bit too much speed in the end. But still, he's got plenty of time to go. But it was a good attempt, and Lauzon now will know that he's not going to be able to make that defence once again, for the simple reason that David Bow does not make the same mistake twice, but he has got a slow down here due to the cut, and he will have to serve that slow down, and as he lets Eric Statso, who's a lap down, back on through. But meanwhile, we do look from one breakfast for dinner driver who's battling for P4 to one who is battling for the lead. He is your overall leader, and it is James Carr, the breakfast for dinner driver, as they head on down towards turn number 10. Mick Hendricks there disappearing out of existence briefly. Surely that's not going to be a retirement for Hendricks. No, it's not. He really materialises there. I was going to say that would be an absolute heartbreak for Hendricks as they make the way over 11 and down towards turn number 12. I hope that's not a sign of a wider issue that's coming as Carr here makes his way through 12. Hendricks follows on through as they go on to another lap, but James Carr definitely seems to have the measure of his rival. Meanwhile, a bit further back, we can see McKinsey battling with Vajulaz here down the back straight into turn number 10. Vajulaz defending for the P7 position as they make the way under braking. And now they head for the chicane and up towards turn number 11. But we ride on board here with the velocity driver and Delta class leader O'Connor Achitella as the private team makes his way on down the hill and really looking at this battle in front of him and thinking, can I pick them off as they battle harder and faster for P7? And that would be something they want to do, given the fact that Achitella is no stranger to finishing inside the top 10 in this series overall. And if he can make it another top 10 finish today, yeah, I think he will finish inside the top 10 of the overall championship when the final curtain falls. But as they make the way down through turns 2 and 3 and into 4, we can see night time is gradually descending on the circuit. The sun is setting, so we will have some night racing to wrap up our racing of the season. And as they come through turn number 5, all 3 drivers here all taking slightly different adjustments to the line that you typically see through turn number 5. Achitella taking a more traditional line, McKinsey really clutching it over the apex, going for a late apex, and then we saw there right up front Vajulaz going for quite an early apex by comparison and bleeding off a bit of speed from the car and exit. But as they make their way through turns 6 and 7, they all stay together as they make their way through the right-hander and head on down the back straight. And as they come on down there, I can see a number of reactions with regards to Shepka losing out in the run down through the S's, and also with regards to what happened to David Bow only moments ago. And we say hello to Assuming One in particular there in the YouTube chat as they make the way on through. But meanwhile, speaking of saying hello, well, will it be the case that Achitella is able to say hello to a move for P8 here, or will McKinsey also have something for Vajulaz as they make the one through? Well, neither. Both of them decide to stay put, and Daniel Smith now also looking at a potential move here as he comes through turn number 11. He's running P10 at the moment overall, effectively P9 in class as they make their way through the right-hander, and the Alpha driver looking for that potential move a little bit later on. And as they come across the timeline, there is Shepka, and Shepka just sets another
new personal best. Well, I can tell you one thing, he's been knocked about twice. It hasn't demotivated him. If anything, it's only fired him up more. That was a 28.18. And to give you an idea, the fastest lap of this race is held by Hendricks, a 28.13. Shepka right now is on leader's pace, and how he must be thinking to himself right now, if only it had not gone wrong at turn 10 earlier on. But you can't think about that. He's just got his head down. He's going for it here. He's not letting it get in the way. And the Honda driver is absolutely buzzing as he makes his way up towards turn number 6. Meanwhile, coming into the pits from one Honda driver tonight is QZ Motorsports Adrian Fedorowski as he comes in from P15, P3 in the Delta class as he comes in for his next scheduled stop. But we see August Blondel here coming across the timeline, the Blue Flag Motorsports driver here pressing on for another lap, and we'll be expecting some pit stops soon, given we are almost at 50 minutes complete, and with the race being 75 minutes in length, we would expect the second pit stops to take our drivers to the end, coming in around that 50-minute mark. And speaking of what else is coming on in, James Carr, a 28.080, that's a personal best. Hendricks, a 28.014. Hendricks here is really just pushing it once again, and I think both of them are due to come on in soon. And again, it's the story of who's going to push the hardest out of the pair as they make their way down through turns 3 and 4. And surely, and I'm not wishing this on either of them, I don't want to put the commentator's curse on either driver here, but if they push this hard and they're going for 27.9 soon, one of them is going to have to go into a mistake soon, unless they can just keep this pace up, because right now these are qualifying laps. And speaking of 27s, well, I don't know where it's come from, but Shepka's just at a 27.82. My goodness. Well, the talkative racing driver at this point, I can tell you this now, if he's going to take one accolade away from today, it is going to be the fastest lap, because at this rate he is just simply tearing time out of the circuit as he makes his way through the S's here and gets closer and closer to the back of Smith, Achatella and also McKinsey and Bajulas. And to put that in context, he just took a whole second out of Smith in front. That is how quickly he is going here. Now, of course, they are squabbling over P7. We do have to keep that in mind. But to take a whole second out of the group of 4 cars in front, they're only squabbling in terms of in the toe of one another, not battling side by side right now. That is huge at this point in the race, as McKinsey has now got to worry about what's in his rearview mirror, and that is the velocity of Achatella as they make the way in the drag race down the back straight. And you can see there McKinsey in the Elantra not feeling safe and having to do a little bit of a bob and weave to the outside there as they head downhill into the braking zone for turn number 10. Onto the brakes they go, and Achatella stays behind them. Daniel Smith also looking at this, and of course Smith teammates with Shepka. I wonder if Shepka gets close enough whether Smith is going to make it difficult or easy. I think it might be the latter rather than the former as they make the way through turn number 12, but it looks as though Shepka's into the pit lane. He's decided to come in. He's going to go for the undercut here, and it's going to be qualifying laps where he exits the pit lane to try and get the jump on the group of 4. That means Gerkensmeer comes on through to take P11 as he makes his way on to another lap. But meanwhile, we do look back to the battle between McKinsey and Achatella as they head up the hill. As they come through turns 2, 3 and 4, we can see here no change at the moment, but McKinsey definitely feeling the pressure from Achatella. As meanwhile, we ride on board here with the driver who's in the popcorn bucket seat view of what is Daniel Smith as the talkative racing driver, looking at the group in front and thinking whether he can get into the mix here as they make the way out of turn 5 and onwards towards 6. But heading in towards the braking zone soon for the right-hander complex, we can see Smith not close enough to potentially contest the move. I think right now playing the bigger game here of looking for where the strategy plays out, and also whether they knock one another about. You can dig up more than one position with a single move on the circuit as they head out of turn 7 and down that back straight. All 4 drivers charging up the gearbox now as they get closer and closer in the slipstream train. Of course, Bajulas at the very head of this train does not have that advantage. He has to simply run on the pace. You can see that Bajulas having to go defensive as they make the way on through. Bajulas right now squeezing McKinsey as much as possible. Achatella tries to get his nose in there and then thinks better of it, thinking, goodness, I'll be ended up going off circuit this way. And McKinsey defends on the outside to inside. Bajulas tries to hang it around the outside. They head up the hill. Bajulas tucks it in. I think they're coming into the pits. Well, Bajulas comes on here. He's decided, right, if I'm not going to get it done there, I'm coming in and undercutting all of you as they make the way into the pit lane. Meanwhile, McKinsey stays on out. Achatella stays on out. Smith stays on out. And Smith now looks at a potential move. Shink is into the pit lane as well. He's coming in early. And the big question is, can Shepka jump ahead of Bajulas? He's making his way down towards turn number 10 right now. This is going to be the first big test of this strategy. He's gone for the undercut. And as they make the way through turn number 10 here, can Shepka get
get it done. Well, Shink's leaving the pit lane already. We expected that to be a given, that he jumped back out ahead of Shepka, to be fair. And as Shepka comes down for 11 into 12 here, roaring his way on through the right-hander. Headlights on as the sun continues to set here at Braselton, and as he makes his way into turn number 1. Well, Bajulaz is leaving the pit lane, but I think it's all said and done. Shepka comes on through, he gains 1 place, and I think Shepka here is onto a winner with this strategy. But will he be able to then go hunt down the next driver up the road, who will effectively be beyond McKinsey? That will be David Bauer, who is 9 seconds ahead of McKinsey as they currently stand between P5 and P6 on that timing tower. The Shepka continues to fly on through. His fastest lap was almost dethroned by James Coast at 27.85 on 2 laps ago. But as our drivers continue to make their way on around here, we are expecting Car and Hendricks to come on in soon. And, well, when we see them come out for their final stint, will we see Hendricks ahead or not? That'll be the big question. Meanwhile, into the pits from P3 is Lauzon. P4 driver Rhodes comes on in, and so does Bauer from P5. And with this group of 3 coming on in, what about McKinsey? Well, McKinsey carries on through here. My goodness, he's going a bit longer here compared to the rest. And he's also got Agitella and Smith following him through, so it's an all change at the moment as the drivers head on to another lap. And the headlights are on at this point, and the question is who's going to be bringing it on home on the podium overall, as McKinsey right now, he's definitely perhaps not had the overall pace compared to most, but he's been delivering. But speaking of delivering, here comes Shink to the timeline. He was P3 when he came into the pits. Lauzon and Rhodes are leaving the pit lane, Bauer as well, but Shink comes on through to retake that P3 effective as he makes about the hill, and John Lauzon once again sees his teammate just in front of him, just literally inches in front as they come out of the pit exit and onwards towards the remainder of the race. Justin Rhodes there emerges behind, but Daniel Sedino is ahead of David Bauer, and Sedino has yet to take his second stop. But David Bauer having a much longer stop by comparison here. And did something go wrong? Did they perhaps put a bit of excess fuel in, or have to do some work on the car? Because the breakfast for dinner driver there has lost a lot of time. He's effectively lost what is there 4 seconds to what is, in fact 6 seconds, I should correct myself, to Justin Rhodes in P10, his teammate. Meanwhile, Logan McKinsey here, running in P3, but we know that's not where he'll be once he's taken his pit stop. We assume it's not going to be. He's still battling with Agitella as they make their way through the chicane once again. And these guys right now, Agitella is literally glued to the back of the yellow flag motorsports machine as he peels on in, does McKinsey. Agitella stays on out, and he's going to go even longer here, much like Karen Hendricks, as the 2 leaders are stayed on out, and Agitella here trying to go for the overcut versus both McKinsey and also what is Shepka and also Bajulaz. Now, how will this play out in practice? We're going to find out shortly with also Demir and Lara. Here comes Shepka. You can see Bajulaz very briefly there in the rear of your picture. So that shows you how much Shepka has gained on Bajulaz, and Shepka is continuing to fly. That last lap at 28.44. Track temperature is dropping quite significantly at the moment, and also ambient temperature as well, which will not help with regards to lap times. But Shepka comes through turn number 12. He makes his way onwards towards another lap. Rhodes is in the pit lane. In fact, Rhodes has come in again. I don't know. I'm not sure what's happened to Justin Rhodes, but Shepka comes on through, and he's going to jump ahead of McKinsey, who comes out the pit lane. What about Bajulaz? Meanwhile, can Bajulaz jump ahead of McKinsey? I don't think so. I think Bajulaz is going to be very close, but it's no cigar as he makes his way into turn number 3, and McKinsey has stayed ahead of Bajulaz, but Shepka has jumped ahead of the whole group, and based on this rate of logic and reasoning, my apologies, I'm lots of words with regards to Shepka's pace. That's why I'm stuttering at the moment. Shepka is going to jump ahead of Agitella and also Smith when they come on in, but he's absolutely on a mission at the moment as they make the way onwards towards the end of this race. And speaking on towards the end of the race, here is James Carr and here is Hendricks just behind. It's going to be a battle of the pit stops, and who's going to come out the head of the 2 as we wait to see here the blimp just gradually making its way over the pit lane or adjacent to it. We can see they're leaving the pit lane at the moment. That is August Blondell making his way out from P16, but Hendricks there having the fastest stop. It's going to be side by side. Oh, surely they're not going side by side. Oh my goodness, and Hendricks there, well, trying to go around the outside thinking that Carr was going to back on out, but Carr, no way was he going to back out there, and Hendricks with a small whack to the wall that may just hurt the car enough to upset Hendricks. He chases down James Carr to the finish here, but Carr stays ahead. Meanwhile, what about Shepka versus rivals? Well, we've got Sonino in the pit lane. We've also got Agitella and Smith, and Agitella's already leaving his pit box, and it's quite a run. And Shepka, I think, is going to come on through. Here comes Shepka. He does. He makes his way on past Agitella, and Shepka is now up into P6. And I do believe, unless I'm mistaken, Rhodes has retired from this race, I think due to a technical issue with the car, so they've had to bring on in something that's broken on the car of what is there Rhodes, and he's going to drop down the order. So Shepka right now, for a bit of fortune, but also sheer grit and determination and outright pace, has jumped all the way up to P6 from P11, coming on to the final stint as he makes his way down towards turn number 6 here. As he heads onto the brakes, it's Achatella who has re-emerged with Daniel Smith just behind him, but Achatella and Smith have re-emerged ahead of Logan McKenzie, who has now got Jerome Bajulas for company as they make the way through what is there, turn 6 and 7. In fact, I've just had it updated. Rhodes has made his way back out of the pit lane, so whatever issue there was on the car that's led to Rhodes taking an extra stop, well, I think it was an instant. We're going to double check in fact as Rhodes, oh goodness me, Rhodes just parked up there. He's jumped back to the pit lane again. Well, Rhodes has got an issue with the car. They can't fix that issue. They thought they got it fixed, and Rhodes' race has gone from good to bad to disastrous with only what is less than 20 minutes to go, unless my mental maths is incorrect. But Rhodes is back in the pit, and I think that for Rhodes could be a retirement because it's not going anywhere at the moment. And I can see they are taking the car into the garage, as meanwhile, into the garage area, of course, with them being open bit boxes, as meanwhile Bajulas here tries to hunt down McKenzie and get the move from P9. But oh, how the tables have turned with regards to battles for positions. We see Eric Statz there on the inside, now a lap down in this group effectively, as we see that McKenzie flashing his lights, and I can understand why. McKenzie does not need any hold-ups here as they make the way up the hill, but I think the hold-up is going to be what he gets here, as Eric Statz hasn't really got anywhere to go, and that's the thing in the run through the S is when you're a lap down, you have the right to run ahead of the group. You can't just simply lift off the throttle, because where are you going to put the car other than understeer onto the grass? And Stats will now be thinking about, okay, can he potentially lift off or give the space? As McKenzie almost hits the wall, coming out turn number 5, bouncing off of the exit curb. They're hitting it so hard and fast. And right now, McKenzie nowhere near close enough to find his way past Stats. As they make their way through the double right here at turns 6 and 7, you can imagine for McKenzie it is going to be one of the situations whereby he'll want to use the toe of Statson to gain the place and then run away from Bajulas if he can. But as they come charging on down this back straight, we can see Achatella as well all over the, well, he's got Daniel Smith all over his back there. It's hard to see in these lights. We have to look at our data tower. But meanwhile, Smith looks at a move here. It's the battle of the Velocitas down into turn number 10 behind McKenzie versus Bajulas as well. And we can see that Smith through, and McKenzie defends hard. He overcooks it out into 10B. And meanwhile, they coming out, we can see Achatella and Smith is going nowhere fast as they make their way side by side through turn number 12. Through the right-hander, Smith's going to go all the way around the outside. Achatella gives him the space to do so. McKenzie holds on in the rear of your picture, and Smith has made the move count as they make their way onto another lap. Into turn 1 they go once again, up the hill they go, and as we ride on board the gearbox here of Daniel Smith, it's the headlights of Achatella that loom close behind as they make their way into towards turns 3 and 4 and down the hill into the S as they go. But Smith has made a very tricky move on a driver who definitely, I think, should he be back in season 6, will be competing in the Alpha class, there's no doubt about that. But as they make the way through turn number 5 and head up towards 6 right now, regardless of where Achatella is a Delta and Alpha, he's all fired up, and Smith is only willing to oblige in battling for the P7 as they make the way down into turn number 6. But as they make the way through 6 and up towards 7 at this point, of course, their battle rages on, as does the battle between Bajulas and McKenzie as they come through the right-hander at 7. But the thing for Bajulas, as we ride on board here with the Viva Buzz Energy driver, he's been here for so long now in terms of hunting after McKenzie, and he's just not been able to find a way on through. Meanwhile, speaking of find a way on through, you can see a bit further up the road there, Smith versus Achatella Part 2 is underway, and here is that battle between the two of them as they go side by side into turn 10 once again. McKenzie comes on through, past Stats there behind, and well, Achatella goes round the outside and he gets it done, and Achatella back ahead, and Smith there not finding it too hard, I think respecting the fact that he can always get it back on the next lap as they come roaring on down the hill through turn number 12. And goodness me, if it's going to be like this all the way to the finish, I'm not going to have a voice left, because this battle is absolutely brilliant, and this is what we absolutely love to see in the Alpha Touring Challenge season upon season. But speaking of seeing battles, here comes McKenzie. He's looking up the inside of Smith, but look at Bajulas here with McKenzie having to back off. Bajulas capitalises, but the problem is he's on the outside into 3 and he just creeps the car around. Now, how on earth he managed to find the grip there through turns 2 and 3, I do not know.
Bajulaz gets ahead of McKenzie there, using McKenzie's run into turn 1, his attempt to get the move done on Smith to his advantage, and Bajulaz now, if he can keep that position out of turn number 7, he will most likely be looking for the move on Smith in the run towards turn number 10, and Smith right now has got to be aware of what's coming from behind. The Beaver Buzz Energy Drum, the 99 machine of Bajulaz, is really now starting to bear its fangs as they make the way down the back straight. As they come charging down, all line astern at the moment. We'll have to wait and see who peels on out first as they head their way on down, but it does not look as though anybody's going to be looking at a move this time, as Eric Statsu in P16 at the back of this group. He watches on a lap down, but looking to stay with them to give him the pace run versus Dom Savio, who's a bit further behind as they make the way into the turn 10 chicane. You can see McKenzie right there behind Bajulaz and looking to try and come on back through as quickly as he can, but saying it's one thing, making it happen is another. We've already seen that time and time again. And as we head deeper and deeper into the night here, I think for McKenzie the challenge will be, has he got enough left in the car to get it done? Because of course, now we've cleared the opening hour, we do have that tyre wear consideration for all of our drivers, and who has been able to protect the tyres and who has pushed them a little bit too hard. And as they make the way into turns 2 and 3, we do need to give you a quick update on the battle for the overall lead. Since that incident coming out of the pit lane between James Carr and Mika Hendricks, we can tell you that Hendricks has dropped to 6.5 seconds off the back of car. We believe Hendricks has some damage on the car, which has cost him a lot of lap time. Hendricks is almost losing a whole second a lap versus car at certain points now. I think that damage is taking its toll, and Shink is, 14 seconds back, closing at a rate of half a second lap on Hendricks, but I think Hendricks is more than enough saved to bring the car home in P2 at its current rate of pace. But meanwhile, as we continue to focus here on the battle for P7, as led by Connor Achatella, the Delta Championship winner and the Delta leader here today, as they make the way on down the back straight. Smith only half a second behind, Bajulaz a further 3/10, and McKenzie a further half a second as well. This group running within 2 seconds, one from P7 to P10. It's not going anywhere, they're staying together, and it's all going to come down to the final couple of laps in terms of, can Achatella hold on for P7, another strong finish in the season, or will Smith be able to find his way into P7 and pick up what for him will be one of his strongest feature race season finishes as he makes his way down to turn number 12. As they make the way through the right hander, you can see there on the timing tower, Smith, Bajulaz and McKenzie all setting personal best at this point. All their laps within the field of Achatella's lap, which was that 28.4. So they're all giving it everything they've got with regards to the car. And also we do have that big question, do any of them have a potential risk of running out of fuel right towards the finish line? And we don't wish it on anyone, but that is something that could be on the minds of our drivers as they make the way on through here with what is now 12 minutes plus the final lap on the clock here at Road Atlanta. A bit further back here is Gerkendemeer in at P11, making his way on down through the S's, and he'll be itching to get into the fight, but he is currently lapping approximately 1 second off the pace of the battle for P7 as he comes out of turn 5 and up towards turn number 6. But with the time remaining, let's take you through the field as it currently stands and give you a recap of the story so far. So starting from the leader, here is James Carr, who sets a new fastest lap of the race as we pan to him of a 27.775 as he heads into turn number 1. He started this race from pole, he has led it from pole, and after 2 pit stops, he is still leading, albeit with a little bit of controversy perhaps with regards to a bit of contact between himself and second place driver Mika Hendricks, who we see here, the blue flag motorsports driver, making his way up through turns 2 and 3, and Hendricks side by side with Carr coming out of the pit lane. We do have to pause that thought very briefly, ladies and gents, because Smith is battling with Bajulaz and McKenzie here, and Bajulaz ahead of McKenzie at the moment, but as they come down through turn number 12 here, it's all kicking off again, and Smith on the outside that gives the space to Bajulaz as they come out of turn number 12, but Bajulaz is still there, albeit he's lost a little bit of speed coming out of turn number 12 and tucks in behind as they head up the hill through turn number 1. Well, I'd love to give you a recap with regards to the field, but I don't think we're going to be given it. I think instead we're going to have to focus our attention here on this continuing battle for P8, because we see that Smith almost falling off the road coming out of turn number 3 down into 4. That's how hard he's pushing the car through 3 in order to try and increment a gap. But as they make the way towards turn number 5, you can see how Bajulaz is having none of it as we ride aboard the gearbox here as Smith gets a good run out of turn number 5, and that gives him a little bit of a breather as they head up in towards turn number 6. Of course, now we're going to be going into Elantra territory in terms of the Elantra being stronger on the exit of 7 in the run all the way down that back straight. And well, how close will Bajulaz be as they exit the corner? He gets a really good launch out of the corner. He takes a whole 10
out to Smith alone out of turn number 7, and this could be what Gilles needs. Of course, Smith will have a distant tail for Achatella, but given the fact that Achatella is 1.3 seconds up the road, it's not going to be a very strong toe, and Gilles is getting closer and closer, but McKinsey's also getting very close to the back of Gilles, and as they make the way onto the brakes here, I think Gilles is going to have to worry about going defense. He puts it slightly off centre in the middle of the road, and as they make the way through 10, I think Smith will be grateful here that McKinsey is not going to play the game of the enemy of my enemy is my friend, as they make the way down towards turn number 12 here, and I think McKinsey wants that place back on Gilles, when really Gilles would be hoping that McKinsey just waits and gives him the chance to push Smith out of the way as they make the way into turn number 1, and of course not literally making contact, with the idea being they can both come on through, as they make the way through turn number 1 and up into 2. You can see Gilles taking another look to the inside into 2, but no real way through, trying to get Smith to make a mistake, trying to outbrake himself into turn number 3, but no can do, says Smith, as they make the way down through 4 and into the S's here, as they make the way on through into turn number 5. Keep in mind that Achatella's not had the best run through turns 1 through to 5. In fact, he's lost a whole 2 tenths in that sequence of corners, and right now Smith is trying to bring Achatella back into focus as they make the way up towards turn number 6. As they head up towards the right-hander, we ride on board with McKinsey, who watches on here from Peter. He's fallen back a little bit in the run through the opening half of the lap. I think this is more now to get himself set up for the run out of turn number 7. Well, if so, he's actually had quite a poor run out of turn number 7, and I think this is only going to give Gilles the opportunity now to really go for the move versus Smith, and in fact, as they head all the way down the back straight, you can see Smith there a little bit worried, taking a little bit of a wobble to the right and then to the left in order to try and keep Gilles at bay as they make their way down towards turn number 10, but I think Gilles here being made to wait once again, just not close enough to enact the move on his rival, the P8, as they come through the chicane. And rolling on out here, McKinsey getting a nice run through the chicane, to be fair to him. Really now bringing that gap back down, taking 2 tenths out of the drivers in front as they head down through 12 and onto what for them is another lap, but there's not many more to go. And as they come up towards turn number 1, Smith here has got Gilles right on his rear bumper as they head into the right-hander of 1. Gilles looks at the inside, Smith has to give him the space there as Gilles opens the door, but now it's the uphill left-hander at turn number 2, and this is where Smith can really make life miserable for Gilles, and he does there by simply committing to the apex. Gilles has to back out, and when you back out at turn 2, it compromises your line into turn number 3. Now Gilles finds himself falling backwards towards McKinsey again as they make the way on down and around through the S's and up into turn number 5. Through the left-hander they go and up towards turn number 6, but it is a rock and a hard place situation for Gilles right now, because if he puts too much pressure on Smith and Smith reacts accordingly, then what Smith will simply do is force Gilles back towards the hard place, which is McKinsey, as they make the way through turn 6 and 7 and onto that back straight once more. But as they come on roaring through, and what is for them now lap number 45 as the leader of James Carr has already gone to lap number 46. He is the best part of 40 seconds up the road from these guys. They head their way down the back straight. They won't be thinking about James Carr. All they'll be thinking about is taking that P8 position off of one another. As for them, it's going to be the equivalent of a win here today as they make the way down towards the turn 10 chicane once again. As they head on down, we will continue to focus on this battle all the way to the finish as they come roaring through, unless anything else kicks off in terms of battles elsewhere, as our tries come charging on down the hill from turn number 11. And as they head towards turn number 12 here, you can see, whilst it is dark, it by no means makes that curb camera at turn number 12 any less dramatic as they come roaring on through onto another lap. But we do briefly look up the field to see that David Bauer at the moment in P5 here. Well, it was one of the situations earlier on where he fell back behind Justin Rhodes after an error, but David Bauer now in that P5 with Rhodes having to make a retirement, and he's in the pit lane. They're just not able to get the car fixed whatsoever. It's a technical issue. Bauer is being hunted down by Shepka, and Shepka is now starting to fall a little bit off the pace very late on in the race. Shepka's pace has dropped back to Bauer's in the 28.3s, and I think Shepka has literally pushed those tyres in that Honda well beyond their lifespan. He is literally giving it everything to be in that P6 position, and regardless of where he finishes now, I think he'll be giving himself a pat on the back come the end of it. He deserves to, because he has literally flown here today, and I don't think he could have done anything more than what he has done. But as he makes his way all the way down the back straight here, meanwhile Achatella in P7, right now the Delta leader looking firmly on course here for this P7 position with 5.5 minutes to go. 5 minutes come the end of this lap, will be effectively 3 to 4 more laps here at the Road Atlanta circuit, and he is doing everything in his power to keep Smith, Gilles and McKinsey just out of arm's reach, but they are getting closer, and for Achatella that's not comfortable breathing when he has not got long left to go in the race here, and it could definitely
can be a potential upset right at the end for him. But of course, the one thing he does have in his favour is that Smith, Bajaz, McKinsey are already fighting hard for that P8 position, with P7 in the alpha class for them, and therefore he can back them into one another and get them to fight a little bit harder. But as they make the way on through, we do look from them, given there's a brief lull in the action between them, to take you through that order. We talked about Carr and Hendricks earlier, and we were briefly saying that with Hendricks and Carr coming together and Hendricks making contact with the pit exit wall, we have seen Hendricks' pace fall away quite dramatically versus Carr, but he's in a comfortable position for P2. Then Francois Shink here, P3, going into tonight. All he needed to do is finish ahead of Robert Abrams to take the Alpha Championship. With Abrams not in attendance, Francois Shink right now is well on course to securing the championship here, and it will make him a two-time Alpha champion in the Alpha Touring Challenge seasons if he brings it on home behind John Lauzon, his teammate P4, for a long time running after Shink. I think the two of them have settled their differences, and Lauzon just has not been able to match the pace of Shink in the long term on each stint. And Lauzon right now with his P4 finish, I think will secure P3 in the overall championship, which was his target for today. Bauer here, however, has got Shepka up his inside, and Shepka here really coming out to nowhere. We didn't see this coming, but as they make their way out the corner, he's looked for the move, and he hasn't made it so far. Meanwhile, Bajula's here battling with Smith into the turn 10 chicane, so we try to go through the field once again, and instead the field decides to go for battles as they make the way out of 11, and Bajula's there comes on through to take P8 off of Smith in a deft move into the turn 10 chicane. And now as they come across the timeline, 3.5 minutes still to go here. Will Smith now has got Logan McKinsey behind, but Bajula has made it count when it's mattered most. And now David Bauer has the unfathomable task of keeping the Honda of Chequered Bay in the Elantra, and I would imagine that Bauer's tyres right now are feeling much like Shepka's on the front. They are feeling as though they have seen better days as both drivers come roaring out of turn number 5 here and head up towards turn number 6. And given the race leader, James Carr, is currently making his way through turn number 10, I would imagine that means we've got 2 more laps after this one to go. Doing a bit of mental maths quickly, and that will effectively mean that for right now, for Bauer and Shepka, this battle is going to go all the way down to the wire as they head on down the back straight. Meanwhile, Gherkin Demir has made his way past Logan McKinsey. Oh my goodness, and McKinsey into the wall. I'm not sure how on earth that's happened, but the car is stuck in the wall then, the cat Trent, and McKinsey's race is in tears right at the final moment. But meanwhile, Shepka versus Bauer is going all the way down into turn number 10 here. Shepka on the outside, Bauer on the inside, through the left into right, and Bauer here is going to extend the apex, and there's contact between the two. And as they make the way out, well, I think Shepka there's going to press on. I think he'll feel as though he was squeezed to the apex, and as they make the way down for 11 into 12, David Bauer losing out there, but I think Bauer deciding to push it up. I think Shepka's going to yield in fact. I think Shepka's going to give it back here. He wants to get it done fairly, and indeed there he goes. He gives the place back. Great sportsmanship being shown between Shepka and Bauer, and as they make their way through turn number 1, it means they've now only got 2 more laps to settle the score, as meanwhile Daniel Smith is back on the back of Bajulaz. I'm not exactly sure what's happened to Logan McKinsey. I believe he is still stuck in the catch vent at turn number 5, and we'll have to take a look back at what exactly happened to McKinsey come the end of the race, but something has gone so very wrong for McKinsey, I can tell you that now. But meanwhile, as Smith here tries to come back at Bajulaz, heading all the way out towards turn number 5 through the left-hander, Smith doing everything he can here to come back at Bajulaz, but I don't think he's got enough. Meanwhile, Blondell here battling with always Adrian Fedorowski right at the deathlock here as they make the way down towards turn number 10, and Blondell's come on through here to take what will be P3 back in the Delta class, and Fedorowski are just not on the pace, and that last lap a whole second slower than Blondell. Blondell's had, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, a bit of a slow start to his race, but he's going to end it on the podium as he makes his way through the right-hander at turn number 10. As they come down through 11 and down towards 12. In fact, Fedorowski's got to come into the pits. I think he's underfueled and tried to fuel save to the end, and it has not worked out. So he's going to miss the end of the race by a lap, which is absolutely painful for the QZ Motorsports drivers. He comes on in, but meanwhile, whilst he's coming on in, here is James Carr making his way, your race leader, through turn number 5 and up towards 6. And as he heads on down towards the braking zone with McKinsey coming into the pits, having to jump to the pits after being caught off circuit at turn number 5, he shot to P16. As there's a late spin in the yarn with regards to events out and circuit, and a number of drivers being promoted positions, but James Carr right now with only 30 seconds left on the clock. This will be the final lap. He turns here at Road Atlanta. We will have, when all is said and done, 50 laps completed, and James Carr has been absolutely flawless. Of course, there will be a little bit of a question mark hanging over himself and Hendricks with regards to that battle on the pit exit come the end of their second stint going on to their third stint, but that will be sorted by the stewards post-race. But besides that, James Carr has driven an absolutely faultless race. Every time Hendricks has put in a lap that's been able to threaten Carr, Carr has responded, and as he makes his way down through turn number 11 in towards turn number 12, here is your race winner, ladies and gentlemen. In the season finale, it is James Carr who takes the win overall and in the Alpha class for breakfast for dinner by a margin, when all is said and done, of 15 seconds almost over Mika Hendricks, who comes on home to take P2, the Blue Flag Motorsports driver. I don't think he'll be pleased about how it finished, but he'll be pleased with the fact that he took Carr all the way until the contact, and then we've got to wait a further 10 seconds before it will be Francois Shink who comes on through to take P3 overall. But for him, it is the crown overall in the Alpha Championship for Season 5 of the Alpha Touring Championship. Congratulations to Francois Shink. John Lauzon comes across the line there in P4, and then it will be David Bauer who crosses the line P5 just ahead of Shepka, holding off Shepka to the finish. And then here comes Connor Achatella, your Delta winner, your Delta champion, already crowned a round to go, but he crosses the line P7 ahead of Jerome Jones P8, Daniel Smith P9, and then Gurkan Demir P10 comes on through to complete his race as he comes on through the final corner to take his checker flag. And it will be Aaron Lahr, who is a further 18 seconds back, who comes on through to come home best of the rest, P11, as he makes his way down for 11 and into turn number 12. And as he makes his way through the final corner, we run out of VHS tape, but it was also going to be Daniel Sedino who comes on through to be the last finisher on the lead lap there in P12, second place in the Delta class. And with that result, I believe that will secure him P2 in the Delta Championship when all is said and done. But we're at that, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take you through those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. As we bring those results up on screen for you, we can see here after 75 minutes of racing at Road Atlanta in the season finale in the special challenge race of the Alpha Touring Challenge Season 5 as hosted on iRacing, James Carr taking the win by just under 15 seconds from Mika Hendricks ahead of Francois Shink, who completed the overall and the Alpha podium. Francois Shink, our champion for Season 5 overall and in the Alpha class, a great drive from the Beaver Buzz Energy driver. John Lauzon P4 ahead of David Bauer P5, and then Matt Shepka P6, Connor Achatella P7, taking the Delta win, and again reasserted his status as the Delta champion for Season 5 in the inaugural Delta Championship. And we look forward to seeing how he gets on if he returns in Season 6, which I'm sure he will, given he's got a title to defend. Alternative, he's promoted to the Alpha class, he'll be looking to go for gold there as well. Jerome Bajad's P8 in a brilliant battle all the way to the wire with Daniel Smith P9, and then Gurkan Demir P10 to complete the overall top 10 with Aaron Lahr P11. Daniel Sedino, the first of our finishers, a lap, well, in fact, not a lap down. I should correct myself there before I go the wrong way. Daniel Sedino being the last of our lead lap finishers in P12 for Blue Flag Motorsports, and then Auguste Blondel, the first of our lap finishers on the first lap down, P13 there, and that is the Delta podium of Connor Achatella, Daniel Sedino, and Auguste Blondel, with Adrian Fedorowski P14, Eric Statzer P15. Great start from Eric Statzer, just did not quite have the pace to wrap it all up when he needed to get on the podium. Logan McKenzie with that late retirement, which we'll come back to very shortly, P16. Dom Serio P17. Justin Rhodes with a technical issue, retiring 13 laps in the MP18. And as we continue to go down the standings there, we can also see Michael Zepp and Alex Kotlowski, the two debutants for today, retiring 38 laps before the finish, P19 and P20 equivalent, as they come across the line and be classified. But now we must briefly cut away before we come onto the final championship standings to what is that incident which involved Logan McKenzie right towards the end. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is what happened to Logan McKenzie. As we do get the replay of McKenzie in particular, going through turn number 5, and the car coming out. Oh my goodness! And McKenzie there, well, I don't think anybody expected that to happen, but McKenzie finding a spot on the curb there at turn 5, which launched the car into the air and sent it up and over the catch fence, and the car came on down, and McKenzie had nowhere to go other than stay there and then jump the car to the pit. Well, very unfortunate for McKenzie, but that's what happened, and well, he has ended his championship campaign in the worst possible way. But with that, now the big question will be, how do the championships stack up come the finish? Well, let's take you through them. So after 13 rounds of racing, here are the overall Drivers' Championship standings. And as we can see, crown champion Francois Shink there on 657 points, running it all the way to the finish versus Robert Abrams, who not in attendance today, finished P2 in the end on 559 points. James Carr with the win here today, and I've been corrected as a result. James Carr taking that P3 in the championship, really the best of the rest outside of Shink and Abrams there in P3, finishing 6 points clear of John Nalson there. A brilliant rivalry between the two, going all the way down to the wire. And Micah Hendricks as well, P5 there, completing the top 5 on 500 points. And what this will also mean for Micah Hendricks is he is our highest placed rookie in his first season, and he is our winning rookie of the top rookie award over the course of season 5. Logan McKenzie, P6 there, missing out on the top 5 by 6 points, and David Bow 5 points behind as well. And there's a sizable gap to Matthew Shepka, P8. But the story of Shepka's campaign has been one of two halves, whereby in the first half of the season, it didn't quite go the way he wanted it to, but in the remaining rounds, particularly in the last 5 rounds, we have seen a different Shepka take to the circuit, one who has been literally driving to be out front. And I can imagine in season 6, he is going to come back and really put in a huge championship campaign to become overall champion. There's no doubt about that. Jerome Bajaz P9 and Connor Achatella there with his result today, completing not just his Delta Championship as championship winner, but also finishing inside the overall top 10, which is a huge achievement for Achatella in his first season. There's no doubt about that. And then coming outside of the top 10, from P11 to P20, Gurkan Demir taking the best of the rest accolade in P11 on 352 points. A sizable margin clear of teammate Aaron Lahr for Torque Steer Racing, and Daniel Smith literally 4 points behind Aaron Lahr, his teammate as well. Justin Rhodes in the end, what could have been a great result today, undermined by a technical issue during the second pit stop. And in the end, we see that Justin Rhodes finishing there P14 on 283 points. 50 clear of Daniel Sedino, who, given his result today, that P2 in the class, P13 overall, sealing that P2 in the Delta Class Championship ahead of Auguste Blondel and Eric Statzer there, just missing out being the top 3 in the Delta Class overall with 189 points versus Blondel's 204. Giovanni Romano there, not in attendance today and hasn't been for the last couple of rounds, but P18, Adrian Fedorowski, P19, and Dom Savio completing the top 20 in P20, only 5 points off of Fedorowski when all is said and done. And then outside of the top 20, we can see here Fernando Takahashi, P21 ahead of Wojciech Swiadoricz. Then we do have Jesse Berners, Paul Mikolajczyk, Travis Hoare, Wiley Cox, Spencer Cockayne, Corey Fluke, Michael McLeod and Alex Jensen completing the top 30. And then looking to outside the top 30 from P31 to P40, Jermaine Warren, Jorge Zuniga, Casey Nimitz, Jonathan Stroll, Scotty Lund, Brandon Vez, Kirby Cavillion, Sean Gurd, Michael Zepp and Joe Camilleri. And then coming on to our last drivers from P41 to P44, Alex Kotlowski, Sam Boutwell, Andrew Trickett and Steve Hansel. And what that effectively means is, ladies and gentlemen, and just to reconfirm our champions then, your Alpha champion for the Alpha Touring Challenge Season 5 is none other than Francois Shink. A brilliant drive from him, and he is a double champion now in the Alpha Touring Challenge. 657 points to his name, 3 wins on the clock, 3 pole positions, and 124 laps led. And thank you very much to the organisers for these absolutely brilliant graphics. Congratulations to Francois Shink. And, well, of course, from congratulations to him, we must also give congratulations to our Delta champion. Our first Delta champion in the history of the Alpha Touring Challenge, Connor Achatella, the privateer, taking the championship with 405 points, 6 Delta wins, and also 1 lap led, 1 overall lap led. And I think that also brings a little bit of a tear to his eye in the fact he can also say he is the first Delta to ever lead an overall lap in the history of the Alpha Touring Challenge. And we look forward to seeing him take the fight to the Alphas in Season 6, and also seeing who is able to fill the vacuum in his wake in Season 6 in the Delta class. But of course, we're not quite done there yet, because we have talked a little bit about in the past the team standings, but we haven't brought you those standings for quite a few rounds now due to some slight technical issues with the scoring. But I can tell you the team standing scores are in, and our winning team is... It is Beaver Buzz Energy there with 1,380 points to Breakfast for Dinner's 1,231 points. We have seen the Teams Championship oscillate between Beaver Buzz Energy and Breakfast for Dinner since the outset. Yellow Flag Motorsports and Torque Steer Racing have been hot on their heels, but Beaver Buzz have got the job done in the end with a great set of results, particularly in the final 5 rounds of the season. The results have come alive. Breakfast for Dinner having a strong start to the season and a really strong mid-season, particularly you'll remember at Imola and also Monza it went well for them. but not quite able to deliver on that sentiment in the final couple of rounds. Yellow Flag Motorsports there, P3 just outshining Torque Steer Racing, and then Blue Flag Motorsports completing the top 5, with QZ Motorsports and Gasparilla Motorsport completing our team's championship standings. And then as well, that's the end of our standings, ladies and gentlemen. The only other thing we can come to the end and say now is that it is time for us to wrap up. And thank you very much for watching, and with my voice almost now at breaking point after 13 rounds of racing in this absolutely fantastic AlphaTouring Challenge Season 5, we do now have to bring the curtain down on what has been an absolute thriller of a season. But if you do want to know more about the AlphaTouring Challenge, if you're sat there right now and thinking, I want to be on the grid for Season 6 of the ATC, well then do head to our website, the alphatouringchallenge.wordpress.com website, for all the information you need. Alternatively, if you want to go to the heart of where all of our drivers are, where the organisers are, and say, sign me up today, or I just want to talk to all the drivers and tell them what a fantastic season it was, well then head to the official Discord, invite link available on screen there, and you can head there and talk today. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, we've wrapped up Season 5, and now all of our drivers will be taking a brief breather before returning come Monday, the 7th of November 2022, for Season 6 of the AlphaTouring Challenge. In terms of how it will be broadcasted, we're still finalising the details with regards to that. But I can tell you one thing, if Season 5 is anything to go by, Season 6 is going to be an absolute statement of intent from all of our drivers in terms of Season 5 has set the bar very high, and they'll only look to go higher and higher as the season commences. But that is all for Season 5, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for tuning in. It has been my pleasure as your host and commentator to bring you the story all the way throughout. I've been Paul, TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain the Spit. We have been the AlphaTouring Challenge, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.